welcome Dan Streetman, Executive Vice President of Enterprise Solutions, Global Sales and Marketing.
Nope. There we go. There's the voice. Okay. We could have screamed from here and it would have worked just fine. We are, after all, in the city of emotion, the city of character, the city of New York. Welcome to BMC Exchange, New York City. This is one of many of our global exchanges. We actually do 10 around the world. And the whole idea clearly is to bring global insights, but really create local connections. So to everyone in the room, I'm happy you've joined us. And for those of you viewing online, welcome. We're very happy to have you here. And I'm really happy to be here in New York City, because New York City and the state of New York in general has a history of innovation which is pretty unique. And we can go back actually 2 centuries to really cool inventions created right here in New York. First, one of my favorites, the club sandwich. Club sandwich, honest to goodness, invented in Saratoga Springs. And of course, to go along with the club sandwich, what do you got to have? Potato chips. Also invented in Saratoga Springs. So the club sandwich and potato chips invented here. One thing we've all had, even if you haven't had a club sandwich or potato chips, I think you have, powdered gelatin. Portable gelatin powder, which was the actual patent. Jell-O, invented here in New York. Pretty amazing to think about the things that were done. And of course, fashion as well. Tuxedo Park. Who knows where Tuxedo Park is? Right? Just right up in the Hudson Valley. The tuxedo, right, named after Tuxedo Park, was invented here in New York. Now, one final thing invented before all that, which is maybe if you're going to have a club sandwich, potato chips, gelatin, and wear a tuxedo, you might also want to make sure you have a supply of toilet paper. Toilet paper, invented in Albany, Scott Tissue Company, 1838. Of course, the patent was perforated wrapping tissue, because we didn't want to call it toilet paper back then. That would have been gauche. So welcome to New York, lots of innovation. You know what? That innovation continues. Mayor Bill de Blasio has actually had a bold jobs innovation plan, releasing $1 billion of funding into New York to drive innovation. There's over $1 billion invested in technology, creative arts, culture. $500 million of that promoting life sciences and technology. And $30 million of that is going to be focused on growing cybersecurity in the technology ecosystem. So it's really phenomenal to see New York leading the way. And that's why there's actually a group called the City Initiatives for Technology, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship. City has rated New York one of the top major metropolitan areas in the world for innovation and entrepreneurship. And Bloomberg just last month published how New York is actually the capital of the booming artificial intelligence industry. We're going to hear a lot more about that from one of our guest speakers. But New York, that's right, New York, not San Francisco, has the highest percentage of AI and machine learning jobs as a single metro area. 11% of all national job postings are here in New York City around artificial intelligence. It's a pretty phenomenal history going back 2 centuries of innovation, but a lot happening right here and now, and that's why we're really happy to be here. This is the 3rd of our 10 global exchanges, and the idea is to bring a perspective from global insights, more importantly though, to connect locally with each other. This is a chance for us to share our strategy on how we're working with customers to drive innovation and work with you, and it's your chance as well to engage with one another, to share insights and ideas with each other. We've got some great days, a great day in store. We've got some great keynotes. We've got roadmap updates and more. But the real goal is to help you tailor this to get the most out of it. So in order to support that, we've provided the BMC event application. If you haven't downloaded it already, you can. It's a great chance to actually identify who's here, identify what sessions you'd like to attend, and network with one another. It's got other information as well and a chance to engage. If you need to find it, you can log into either Google Play or the App Store and find BMC Event. Log in with the email address you registered with and use the global password BMC Event. Please do that at the break. We've got a lot of exciting things to share right now, but that app will be there and available for you. And speaking of people you want to use the app to network with and find more about, I'd love to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Our partners who are here to extend our ability to deliver value and to change and drive and thrive in this era. I'd love to specifically thank Evolvin, Infusion, and Tribal Genius, our gold sponsors, but thank all of them who are here with us today. They are right outside in our sponsor Expo, so a good chance during the break, while you're downloading the BMC app, if you need to, is a chance to meet with them. Also a good chance today during lunch. So please take the time to visit them throughout the day, and let's give a round of applause to them to thank them for being here. We're really happy for that. Of course, we also want you to share what's happening here with those who are viewing globally, with those who are not able to attend the event, or with each other by using Twitter or whatever social media you'd like to do. These are a selection of the hashtags that are going to be appropriate to the topics we're discussing today. Multi-cloud, cybersecurity, automation, Control M DevOps, service management, and mainframe will all be topics we'll cover today, and there's great hashtags available for you to share. We're looking forward to you sharing your experience today. So please use the app to find out what's going on, to make sure you're on schedule, to see who's here. And then let's use Twitter to share some of the insights we're gathering and seeing today. And speaking of insights and sharing, it's a really good opportunity to talk about who our keynote speakers are. Our first keynote speaker is going to be our president and CEO, Mr. Peter Leave. And Peter's going to discuss the new market dynamics that are created with the onset of digital and how companies must innovate in this environment while still running their core business. And of course, Peter has a track record of innovation inside companies like NCR, Motorola, Symbol, and Cisco Systems. Most recently, before joining us, Peter was the president and CEO of Polycom. He's been a great leader for us as we drive innovation and think about what it means to manage your day-to-day business, yet innovate with technologies day in, day out. Going deeper into that, we're going to have Bill Baruti, the president of our Enterprise Solutions Group. And Bill's actually going to share some technology innovations and also bring some customers on stage to share real-life examples of how they're pushing the boundaries of what we once thought possible, using BMC solutions and solutions from our partners. Bill Miller, the president of our Z Solutions Group, is not only a veteran of our armed forces, but a veteran of BMC. Bill has been our COO and president of several of our product groups, and he's going to share some exciting things about our Z Solutions Group, and particularly around mainframe and our automated mainframe intelligence, AMI. Finally, we're going to be treated to a great keynote with a special guest, Dr. Lyle Unger. He's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania and an expert in artificial intelligence and many other areas. I will fully introduce Dr. Unger when we get before his keynote, but suffice to say, you're going to want to hear his presentation. So I'm really excited about what we have to offer today. We'll talk about our breakouts and what we have after our first break. And now gives me great pleasure and ask you to help me welcome our president and CEO of BMC Software, Mr. Peter Leave.
Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to New York City. Welcome to BMC Exchange. We are so happy to have you here with us. We have a terrific day planned. We have amazing customers who are going to join us on stage later today. And they're going to share their story about digital transformation, discussing the need to both run and reinvent their organizations. And we've spent a lot of time talking about this, having to run the business operationally, often with greater demands than ever before, and in some cases less budget, while also being asked to reinvent with a keen eye on digital transformation, what it means, how it applies, what customers are asking, and what your customers are asking you. We know there are greater expectations than ever before. And we think about that, and that helps inform our company. It helps inform our strategy. The digital world is real. For a number of years, it was perhaps hyperbole, and maybe it sounded good, and there were sound bites, but we're seeing it in action. It's true for customers. It's true for our customer's customer. It's true in business. It's become true in life. And we're seeing more data, more need to protect that data, more data that needs to be turned into usable insights, more networks, more applications, more endpoints, more multi-cloud. All of that is happening, and IT and IT ops, the language we've been speaking for most of our history, has more on their shoulders than ever before. But IT has changed. It's changed even in the last year. And that's because organizations that we used to refer to as shadow or influencers are no longer in the shadows. They're not only making decisions, they have budget. So while IT ops has all of this on their shoulders, It's not just IT ops. It's apps ops, it's dev ops, it's sec ops, it's business units, it's HR. They've not only got influence, they've got budget. So we're seeing a significant transition operationally because everyone has IT in their purview, or at least they think they do. That changes our world. While all of that's happening, there's another phenomenon that's not new, but it's different, and that is the cost of computing. We've seen computing costs coming down for years. Moore's Law. It's held true, and that's been to the benefit of the enterprise. But we have to watch out, because it's also of late been to the benefit of the cyber criminal. Because now, a cyber criminal can launch a cyber attack in a fraction of the time, at a fraction of the cost, in an automated fashion, and they only have to get it right once. So while we use these terms like run and reinvent, operationally running the business is not for the faint of heart. There's a lot on the docket. While that's happening, we know organizationally we're all being asked to think differently. And there are new phenomena, new dynamics aligned to this digital transformation and this new digital user. And at the heart of this new market phenomenon and digital transformation is a need to move quickly. Speed matters. Speed is important. The fast will win. We also know that agility is a non-negotiable. At BMC, we take great pride in being agile, and we speak agile and agile development. I have friends in the manufacturing world, agile manufacturing, but it's also agile as it relates to adaptability. Are you adaptable and agile in interacting with a different consumer, a different customer than we've ever seen before, who have vastly different expectations? And of course, the organization has to be more efficient. The enterprise must be more efficient. Costs need to come down, productivity needs to go up, ROI needs to be measured. All of these things are happening at the same time. And we're seeing this across industries. Since we are in New York City, which I'm very happy to be home, it is really interesting to see what's happening in financial services. And a terrific customer of ours who's a mainframe customer, a distributed and enterprise customer, a services customer, happens to be the largest bank in the country by asset value, and that's JPMorgan Chase. I know some of our cohorts from Chase are here. But one of the things as we study our customers and talk and listen, most importantly, that's been interesting at Chase is their digital transformation on a few fronts. And one of the things that they did a couple of years ago is they began a process of analyzing their commercial credit agreements, commercial loan agreements. And they had roughly, because they were a bank of scale, 12,000 commercial credit agreements to analyze. And they stepped back and they did a review. How much time was this taking to do the initial pass of the review of all of this material? And the answer was 360,000 hours per year. Not inexpensive work hours, because it was done by lawyers. It was not a lawyer joke, by the way. It just happens to be a truism. It was done by lawyers and loan officers. And they came out with something called COIN, Contract Intelligence, AI ML, machine learning for intelligent analytics of contracts. And 360,000 hours is now being done in seconds. It's a vast change. They've also seen a significant reduction in errors. So when we talk about this as a pie-in-the-sky idea, this is actually happening. And we talk about the need for speed and the need for efficiency. There are starting to occur in business case studies that are changing the dynamic. Chase is also interesting because they've done an interesting analysis of stepping back and evaluating their TAM, their total available and total addressable market. And they happen to be the largest mobile banking entity. 31 million of us are mobile banking customers at Chase. But they stepped back and started to realize there was a different demographic. And 35% of the global workforce by 2020 will be millennials. And needless to say, that number is only going up. Digital natives. So Chase, in an agile fashion, decided to approach that new demographic, that millennial user, in a different way. And they just launched this summer, and it's called Fin. They went from coding to concept to launch in a year. And they decided to approach it differently than they've ever approached anything. Because when they were going to grow in the past, they did what you would imagine. They built branches. In this case, no brick and mortar, no new branches, no new ATM purchases. What they decided to do was approach this digital user in a different way. And from an efficiency standpoint, it's a different cost structure. Because to deposit a check in a digital fashion is 96% less expensive for them than for a human being to walk into a bank branch and interact with a human teller. Different model, different mindset. They also realized that their developers at Chase had to approach this new clientele differently as well. This is a clientele who doesn't behave like most of us did. And they developed automatic savings tools, a different app. So millennials could track their savings. And when they reached a certain milestone, they got a thumbs up. In many cases, they got an emoji. I've been banking for 30 years. My bank's never sent me an emoji. I'm not the type, I guess. The point being, we have a very different user base and a very different populace that is now no longer emerging. They're becoming the most significant consumers in the world. Chase is an interesting example, and we've got many others, and you're going to hear about great examples of what's happening in the market today on stage. But since we were in New York, we decided to start with financial. We also step away and listen to the voice of executives because it's telling. And this was a survey done of roughly 300 CEOs. And it's about 18 months old. But what you can see is half of the CEOs believe their industries will be digitally transformed. And our expectation is that 50% only gets higher. You can also see that the vast majority of CEOs believe they will improve margins, profit of their companies because of digital. And it's incumbent upon most of us to likely make that happen. And roughly half see product value being digital, and that's upcoming. So the voice of the CEO is important, and it helps inform us. Importantly, we also did an analysis of a survey that was done of roughly 3,000 IT professionals around the world. And as you can see, 88% are in the mode of having to transform their business while running it, either desirous of doing so or building and scaling their organizations in an effort to do so. We at BMC look at these as mechanisms to help inform strategy, decisions, investments. We realize the world is non-binary. You're not simply running your business, which is no simple undertaking, as we just discussed, or simply reinventing. We are enterprise entities. We have to do both. And for us, these have been amazing guideposts to help us determine where to invest and how to help you most, while not leaving you behind, but helping ensure that we have readiness for where the world is going. What you'll hear about today is an attempt to succinctly break down three related topics. The first is service. We have a mantra that's non-negotiable in doing everything in our power to provide amazing service to ensure your success. But we're also thinking about your customers' success. Now, many of our customers have told us, as enterprise entities, some who have been around for a while, I need to start by taking an inventory. First, before we make changes, before we reinvent, before we invest, we need to actually know what we have. And we've put a lot of thought, effort, energy, and investment into ensuring that we have the best discovery capabilities that exist. So you know where IT assets are, on-prem, via multi-cloud. If you don't know what you have, it's very hard to protect yourself. It's a discussion about security, ultimately, because elimination of blind spots has become a non-negotiable. We also speak the language of cognitive, AI, ML. And rather than speak in glowy terms about what the world could be, we're going to talk about use cases. In one of the breakouts today, you're going to hear about an amazing customer who has students engaging with bots for service desk help, level 0, level 1, level 2, ultimately. A different approach, and something that we put a great deal of investment into of late. We also know that your customers expect to use the channel of their choice. Omni-channel has become a non-negotiable. And we have worked diligently to ensure that the channel of their choice is enabled through you with our solutions. And importantly, we know that customers today also want the cloud of their choice, because others have approached the market and said, you will use the cloud we determine. BMC's view is, we will use the cloud that you determine. If that's yours, if it's Azure, if it's AWS, if it's Google, it's Cloud Foundry, if it's our own. Optionality is in your camp. And you're going to hear about what we've done, inclusive of containerization. That's a difference maker. So we're excited about what we're doing in services. It's very aligned to the voice of the customer. Many of you have had fingerprints on this, and you'll hear about it today. Operationally, we know that you have to continue to run your business, and that's the majority of where consistent spend is going while you're being asked to reinvent. And we've spent a lot of effort and energy to ensure that we are giving you preemptive, preventative, the solutions that enable you to have a gauge before something happens. We think about performance monitoring, capacity planning. Are you over capacity or under capacity? And do you know prior to being over or under capacity? Cost control, cloud cost control. Before we move an application from on-prem or from the data center to the cloud, do we know what it will cost? Do we know with whom? Is it more expensive or cost prohibitive to do it with this provider or this one? Those are the solutions and tools we brought to market. We also are speaking a different language around security, inclusive of covering the entire stack, inclusive of having remediation. Back to the widening of IT, if SecOps wasn't able to protect the organization from WannaCry or potentially the next WannaCry, it often lands on IT ops to remediate. We do preemptive remediation across the stack, and we'd love to talk to you about what we've invested in. While that's happening, we have a phenomenal business that's a growth business. We're the only organization of scale to make this claim, called Mainframe. Yes, we are growing and consistently growing our mainframe business, and we're happy to continue to take share. But you're going to hear about investment in security, in what we call AMI, AI for mainframe. And Bill Miller is going to share some of that today, some investments that we've made of late that are going to continue to help differentiate ourselves on that front. While all of that's happening, we know a non-negotiable is automation. We must automate in order to move towards a new digital reality. And fortunately for BMC, we have an amazing head start because we have the best workload automation solutions in the world. The best search, the best GUI, the best security, the best dashboards. But we didn't rest on our laurels, even though we're very proud of that business. We have reinvested to enable our customers to do the same thing in business-to-business, manage file transfer, and importantly, to speak the language of DevOps, to speak the language of APIs, to speak the language of modern applications, so we can turn data into usable insights, as customers have told us they need. And you're going to hear about what we're doing on that front today as well. All of this is surrounded by a wonderful wrapper called services, managed services, professional services, education services. So a lot that's on the docket. We've used all of these different elements as it relates to what's happening in the market, what informs us, the most important voice at BMC, and that's yours, the voice of the customer, to help us make decisions. As much as we are excited to show and share, please tell us how we're doing. Please tell us what else we should consider. That's a part of Exchange that I find really valuable and part of the reason it's called Exchange. On that front, I wanted to wish you a terrific day. Thank you for being our customers. Thank you for your continued guidance and helping influence our investments and strategy. And have a great time in New York. Thanks a lot.
Work. It goes where it needs to go. It goes hybrid cloud, public cloud, business cloud, multi-cloud, and back to the data center. But the real work is in managing IT's work. To see the costs, to know it's secure, to improve automation while dialing up the speed, to turn complex into, that was simple. This is where work meets BMC multi-cloud management. This is where work works best. BMC, the multi-cloud management company.
Please welcome Bill Baruti, President of Enterprise Solutions.
Good morning.
We all happy to be here? All right, well, I am excited to be here, and I want to thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. And as Dan and Peter mentioned, I have the pleasure of having 5 of our customers join me during the next hour, and of course, my good friend Bill Miller, representing our Z Solutions business. Now, as Peter just talked about, we all have the same challenge. We have businesses we have to run. Most of us aren't startups starting from scratch. Most of us run businesses that are large and have a rich history, but we have to reinvent at the same time. And running and reinventing is, of course, challenging because nobody gave us a break on doing our day jobs, yet at the same time, we're expected to accelerate the pace of innovation. So within that, we're all struggling to innovate faster and to figure out how to do that on probably the same budget. We're all working hard to bring new skills into the organization. How do we master modern IT? How do we bring people in that understand AI and ML? How do we bring people into the organization that understand cloud? Or more importantly, how do we lift up the people that already work for us and give them those skills? Now also, we have to unify the past and the future. Most of us provide digital services that aren't some brand new shiny object only running in AWS. We have applications and experiences that our users deal with every day that rely on the mainframe, a distributed application, a private cloud app, a public cloud app. And all of those things have to work together in harmony to deliver on the transformation value our company is looking to provide. And then lastly, all this stuff has to work together. Nobody gave us a pass on security, compliance, and by the way, our budgets. And so we have to continue to figure out how to optimize the way that we do our jobs to get more value out of the same budget while expecting to increase the pace of innovation, the number of applications at the same time. So we understand that all of you have a challenging job, and it's BMC's job to help you succeed in that challenge. Now, with that in mind, our strategy is to provide you with open, scalable, and modular solutions. So what do we mean by that? Well, open. We realize that the world is full of tools that are the best tools to help you do your job. Our solutions have to be open. They have to be able to integrate with any environment you choose. They have to be able to integrate with any tool you choose. That means advancements in the way that we deliver modern APIs and modern services to make that easy for you to do. Scalable. Not only do our solutions need to scale with the size and complexity of activities and jobs that you're doing, but we also need to scale across any environment. Our solutions have to help you in a world where you're managing on a mainframe, you're delivering a solution in a data center, all of a sudden you have an application in AWS. We've got to scale with our ability to help you wherever you need to go. And then lastly, modularity. Our solutions need to not only stand alone as best-in-class solutions, but they need to work together in a way that creates even more value for you when you choose to use more than one of our solutions at a time. So these are our priorities, and throughout the day today, you're going to see a lot of evidence of huge innovations in advancement against those. Now, as Peter said, we view our requirement to help you in your digital transformation and your ability to run and reinvent to fall in 3 critical capability areas. And in fact, these aren't new. These are the same areas we've always had to deal with as IT professionals. We have to provide great digital services, and we have to have an IT service management environment, approach, and solution that helps us do that. We have to have operational tooling that allows us to run and operate the business in an efficient, secure, and performant way. And of course, we want to drive higher and higher and higher levels of automation in order to get the efficiency and manual activity out of the way and drive as much efficiency as we can in the process. So we know that, but the reality is the world we live in today, with DevOps and with cloud, we have to rethink the way we've done these things. They can't be done the same way and get the outcomes and the benefits that we're looking for. And so what you'll hear us talk about, myself and with the customers in the next hour, is how we've driven reinvention to think about new and modern ways to approach delivering these capabilities to help you achieve your outcomes and your ability to run and reinvent. So with that in mind, we're going to cover today with our 5 customers, and Bill Miller from Mainframe joining me on stage, 5 critical areas that we see all of you trying to address. They're both challenges and opportunities. You know, they're opportunities because if we harness these effectively, we're going to be able to run and reinvent and move faster and drive efficiencies. But they also create new challenges because new technology and process change requires us to adapt to succeed. So first, we'll talk about cloud. Now, how many of you in the room are either utilizing private cloud or public cloud? And I apologize, I can't see very well because the lights are so bright in here. But raise your hand if you're using public cloud or private cloud environment. OK, so what I can see from the front of the room is most of you. So the cloud is great, and we love the cloud. And we'll talk more about how powerful the cloud can be. But the cloud also disrupts traditional technology and process. We cannot take the same way that we've provisioned and provided and put controls on environments in a public cloud environment or a private cloud environment and expect to get the same result. Those traditional processes are too rigid, and they slow things down. We need to find new ways of providing access to modern environments. Secondly, DevOps and Agile. Again, how many people in the room are implementing DevOps and Agile in their organization? Raise your hand. OK, so most of you, right? And if you're not raising your hand, I bet your organization is, and you may not even know about it. So DevOps is fantastic, and the promise of agility and speed is fantastic. But the problem is, when we throw traditional tools and governance rules around DevOps, developers say no thank you. I mean, how many people in the room would raise their hand and say, a developer loves it when I tell them how to implement ITIL and how to log into 5 different applications for control mechanisms every time they want to run a new build? I can't see, but I bet nobody would raise their hand to that one in the room. So we have to rethink the way operational controls are provided against modern process. Next, cognitive. Cognitive is a great buzzword, so is ML, so is AI, and we could keep going. But the practical application of how we turn data into insights and automation to drive productivity and quality in our processes is a huge opportunity. But again, the same technology and process we used historically won't work. We have to think about ways to automate the ability to take advantage of the overwhelming amounts of data that our organizations are producing. And then finally, security and compliance. None of us get a pass on security and compliance in a modern world where we're innovating faster. In fact, it's harder because security and compliance gets more difficult when we have more digital services. The rate and pace of change on those digital services is double, triple, quadruple what it used to be. Oh, and by the way, there's 5 different environments now, and 3 of them are outside of your control. They're in the public cloud, and you don't really have the same control mechanisms on those, and you might think they're secure, but they're not. And so how do we deal with that and rethink, again, technology and process? So I'm excited to have those 5 customers join me, and let's jump right in. So let's start by talking about the multi-cloud reality. All of us started out in a world where we had a mainframe and then maybe a data center. And if we got more modern in the last 5 years, we built our own private cloud. And we had to deliver all of that infrastructure and the applications that run on them against compliance requirements, against security requirements. And of course, we had to serve modern users and their need to be served on things like mobile devices. And all that challenge existed. It was real, and it made our jobs harder. We all know everybody in this room has had an increasing set of challenges. But now enter the modern cloud and enter the reality of public cloud services, public cloud infrastructure as a service, modern third-party delivered SaaS applications. And all of a sudden, our jobs got a lot harder, because now we have even more forms of infrastructure accessed by people sometimes, and we don't even know it. And by the way, the rest of our job didn't go away. We're supposed to provide operational tooling against that. We're supposed to make sure those environments are secure. We're supposed to deliver high-quality end-user services against all those environments. And so all of you, your jobs got harder because of the complexity of cloud. So we know the opportunity of cloud is real, but the challenge and complexity that it presents is equally real. So as we think about cloud and multi-cloud, and your desire to leverage cloud and to migrate the right applications to the cloud and to build new applications in the cloud, we've heard 3 key imperatives from you consistently. First, we have to enable multi-cloud. What do we mean by that? We can't be locked in to use a piece of technology and a process only in a data center, only in a private cloud, only in AWS. We want to build resilient processes and use technology that allows us to move across different environments and have portability of where our workloads live. Very critical. Secondly, simplify governance. We have got to have a common approach to how we govern all these different chaotic environments. We can't have one security policy for the data center and a different one for the public cloud. And by the way, the public cloud in many ways is secure, but it's not secure when a developer creates an environment,
leaves an open port in an EC2 instance in AWS, and decides to do a real-time test of live customer data against a cool app they're building, and somebody finds that open port. So public cloud needs to be controlled just like our private cloud, just like our data center, but the processes and technologies have to evolve to be able to do that in a simplified manner. And then finally, reduce friction. You know, people aren't happy, developers aren't happy, application builders are not happy when we tell them, well, sure, we can get you that new environment, but it'll take 6 months. They're not happy when we tell them it's going to take 6 weeks. They're not happy when we tell them it's going to take 6 days. They're not even happy when we tell them it's going to take 6 minutes. So we have to drive new levels of automation along with modern frictionless governance to reduce the amount of time it takes us to deliver those environments and keep them safe and secure. Well, I'm excited to tell you that BMC's been doing a lot in this area. We've been rethinking service management. We've been rethinking the way that service management should be delivered so that you can understand where your assets are anywhere in the world in any environment, whether it's the public cloud, the private cloud, the data center, and so on. We've been thinking about how you deliver modern service management environments. Maybe you want to run our solutions in your private cloud. Maybe you want to run them in the BMC cloud. Maybe you want to run them in AWS. Maybe you want to run them in Azure. You should have the choice to do that. That shouldn't be our guideline. It should be your choice. And by the way, our service management solutions should integrate with those modern cloud environments so that you can have a seamless point of view about where all your assets are, all your dependencies, all your changes. In operations, same point. We need to understand performance management across all the environments that drive the outcomes of end user satisfaction. We need to understand how security and compliance requirements aren't just protected in our data center and private cloud where we may have protected them or perfected those processes. We need that same capability to exist across all the public cloud service environments as well. And then a key point is we have to manage cost. You know, it's really exciting that the public cloud companies, the big three, have created this $100 billion, 40% growing market. And if you listen to Andy Jassy, he'll tell you with great conviction that it's going to be a $1 trillion market within 10 years, and he expects to have at least 30% market share and AWS to be a $300 billion business. Well, that's great, but I'm pretty sure that money's coming out of our pocketbooks. And so we have to find a way to optimize the applications we decide to migrate the right ones, not the wrong ones, and we have to be able to manage that public cloud cost in a manner that ensures our budgets don't get blown. And then finally, we have to rethink automation, and we've been doing that at BMC. We've been delivering new forms of innovation that allow you to leverage the public cloud for big data, and you'll hear customers talk about that today, that allow you to build automation into applications and have those workloads be able to run in whatever environment you choose, whenever you choose, to be optimized for the best outcome for you, for cost, for performance, for your choice, and to do it once. So we've been hard at work at rethinking and innovating new solutions and innovating in our existing solutions to address all these challenges. And I want to talk about one specifically. There's lots of them. You're going to hear about them throughout the day. But I want to talk about Helix. Earlier this year, BMC announced Helix. And Helix is the latest innovation in our Remedy suite. And Helix is a big deal. Helix has 3 fundamental key points: cloud, containers, and cognitive. First, let's talk about cloud. Not only is Helix ready to help you in managing service management against any cloud environment and integrating with the public cloud provider services, but in addition to that, it runs in any cloud. All of the capabilities of Helix, Remedy as a service, Discovery as a service, digital workplace, business workflows, all are available in the BMC cloud, AWS, Azure, and soon to come Google. So it's your choice where you want to run our solutions and how you want to optimize them. Secondly, containers. This is truly modern elastic scaling capability, leveraging Docker, leveraging Kubernetes. We have the ability to deliver the most performant, resilient, highest outcome service capable because we are leveraging modern container technology to do so. And all that comes back to your benefit in a modern service management solution. And then finally, cognitive. And I'm going to save this point for later because we're going to come back to it. But Helix has some very powerful capabilities to rethink the way that we deliver modern service management so that we can leverage the intelligence of the data that we have to drive more automation. Now, I mentioned we have some customers with us today. And to get me to stop talking for a minute, I'm going to invite one of them on stage. We are really excited to have with us today Simon Clark. Simon, would you please join us on stage?
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Simon, and I really appreciate you being here. So Simon is with Dow Jones, and I think all of us know the name Dow Jones. It's a very modern media and technology company that all of us really interact with their data every single day. And Simon is the Vice President of Infrastructure and Operations at Dow Jones. So Simon, can you tell us a little bit more about Dow Jones and yourself first?
Absolutely. So Dow Jones is actually a News Corp company. We have about 6,000 employees over 60 locations globally. Our business is broken into two major elements, the consumer side and the business-to-business side. So on the consumer side, you'll notice publications like the Wall Street Journal and our 3 million subscribers there, and also Barron's. And then on the B2B side, we actually have our professional information businesses like Factiva and MarketWatch and News Plus. And my actual role within Dow Jones is actually to work for the application engineering teams to actually provision them cloud and also on-premise infrastructure and services, and then operate and maintain those going forwards.
Great. So you've got a big and complicated job. Now, you have done a lot in public cloud. In fact, you've been very early in the adoption and the aggressiveness of the adoption of public cloud. Tell us a little bit about your cloud journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dow Jones has been on their cloud journey now for 4 years. So we're a long way into that journey. Over that 4-year period, we actually now are multi-cloud. So 70% of our compute infrastructure is actually in the cloud, with both Google Cloud Compute and also with AWS. AWS is now actually our biggest data center. We actually have over 8,000 EC2 instances, and that's hosted in 14 different regions. And in there, we actually have 180 accounts and over 3 petabytes of data stored with AWS. Now, as part of that cloud migration, we've actually also decommissioned over 5,000 on-premise servers and done substantial data center consolidation.
That's impressive. And I think you told me that 70% of your workloads are now in AWS. Is that right?
That's correct, Bill.
Yeah, so an incredible migration to the public cloud. And tell us a little bit about how have BMC and Dow Jones worked together in helping you address the challenges of moving to the cloud?
So I think, when you think about Dow Jones and the way we've worked together, I mean, BMC was there at the beginning to actually help us inform our cloud migration. So we had a 3-pronged approach of actually discovering our assets on premise, as you mentioned earlier, how we actually then started to actually define what we should be migrating, and actually then those migration patterns. So the CMDB and actually discovering the assets on premise was fundamental to understand what operating systems we had, the size of hardware, whether that hardware was actually hosted in a single data center or multiple data centers. And that helped us actually define our migration strategies to the cloud in terms of were they going to be lift and shift, did we have to re-platform? So that's how we basically used the BMC solutions to actually help inform our cloud migration.
That's awesome. And then you have this mixed environment. You still have 30% of your workloads that run on-premise. What are some of the challenges of having that kind of a mixed environment?
Yeah, so one of the things we have is, when we actually got to this place to say, now we're now in this hybrid cloud environment, should we actually create 2 different teams? Should we have an operations team focusing on premise? Should we have an operations team focusing on the cloud? Or actually, should that operations team actually be the application engineering teams in the cloud? And what we've actually elected to do is actually have one operations team using one set of processes, one set of tooling, which is TrueSight as our monitor of monitors, our console, and also Remedy as our ticketing system to actually then drive our standardized reporting as well, so we can actually manage the cloud and our on-premise at that same toolkit. And that's what we've been working very closely together to actually make those toolkits cloud capable.
That's awesome. And so you've done some things to make sure that you can use a common set of processes and a common set of tools to have complete visibility across different environments. I think you told me there's some things that you've done particularly around your monitoring and alerting strategy with tagging and making sure you have a common view of assets.
Yeah, and I think, look, we're now in our 2nd iteration of cloud deployments, and one of our biggest learnings from actual our deployments is actually a tagging strategy. Tagging strategy and governance is fundamental. It actually it helps you enable to understand who actually owns the assets. From a security perspective, we can actually use tagging. We actually have a policy engine. So if you try standing up an instance which isn't tagged correctly, our policy engine will actually shut down that instance. We also then use tagging and the policy engine to actually help with cost control. So we actually, if you don't tag an asset, we'll actually then say we're going to shut down that asset. And actually in our pre-production environments, we've saved over $1,000 a day. Doesn't sound a lot, but that's $365,000 a year, right?
Sure.
And we're now seeing in our production environments an $8,000 a day saving just from having a policy engine and enforcing tagging. But to your point about why is tagging important, we're using tagging to actually import AWS Cloud assets into the CMDB. We then use that tag, that application tag, to inform our monitoring and alerting strategies and actually enrich data from the CMDB, which actually then goes into TrueSight to actually help us understand business impact, because we have a relationship now between application and infrastructure, and those applications roll up to services and then to products, and actually ultimately the impact to our business customer.
It's really impressive what you've done, and I want to talk about one more impressive thing that you've done. So a lot of times we talk about Agile and DevOps in conjunction with the cloud, because that infrastructure is very beneficial to leveraging the speed and agility of DevOps and Agile. So I think you've done some really interesting things to integrate some of our modern services into your CI/CD pipelines. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned ITIL, and when you mention ITIL to a developer, they normally kind of shiver and kind of walk away from you. We've been trying to actually make it easy for the application engineering teams to work with us. We know that change causes a lot of production incidents, and what we actually do is we actually go to the application engineering teams and we actually integrate to their CI/CD deployment pipelines. So for example, Wall Street Journal, we actually integrate to they do multiple deployments a day, and we want a record of that change in our CMDB and in our change records, and we actually integrate to that. So that happens, all the risk level 1 changes come automatically from their deployment tool into Remedy, so we have the record of that change, and it takes seconds. And the joke is, it actually takes longer to create a change in Remedy than it actually would actually doing a deployment.
That's a great example, though, of, again, rethinking the way that we deploy control mechanisms in a DevOps and Agile process that doesn't get in the way of speed and agility, and to your point, doesn't cause developers to reject what we would traditionally call control mechanisms. Fantastic. All right, last question for you. I know we've been on a journey together, and I should thank you for all the insight you've provided us in adapting our technology to modern cloud environments, but we've worked together with AWS as well. Can you talk a little bit about how we've done that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things I was really excited about last year at this conference, actually hearing about your partnership with AWS, and we're now starting to see that in effect now. So one of the things we're implementing at the moment is actually the AWS Connect solution. So it's a customer-centered solution, which we're using and piloting in our service desk at the moment. So that will now integrate to Remedy. So we'll actually then have the ability to actually have the service desk analyst utilize Remedy. It's then going to have all the POPs into Connect, have the ability to actually expose chatbots and also text bots in there as well, which actually create tickets. We'll get fantastic insights from that. And actually on the back end of that, we'll then drive automation to do fulfillment for requests as well.
Wow. Really powerful, and clearly Simon and Dow Jones are on the cutting edge of cloud and modern ways of deploying technology and services in the cloud. Thank you, Simon, so much. Let's all give Simon a round of applause.
Thanks, Bill.
So, we talked about the cloud, and we talked about the public cloud and public cloud infrastructure and public cloud service providers. And it's important, we believe, for us, BMC, to partner very closely with them. And Simon gave a great example of how we're doing that. And I want to take it a step further and just give you a sense for how deeply we're partnering with the cloud providers. We're actually doing joint development, and we're getting certified against competencies in the public cloud. And that competency word is one that you hear a lot from AWS, so I'll give you an example for a minute. BMC's solutions for service, operate, and automate have been certified against AWS competencies. What that means is they've actually tested our technology, they've ensured that it works in their environment in a highly performant way, and they demand that you have multiple references before you can get there. Now, we've taken it a step further. We're actually doing joint development with AWS. And I'll give you one really specific example. We talked about cost, and we talked about the problem of the exploding public cloud bill. And again, I bet if I asked for a raise of hands, I'd get most of the room, if you're using public cloud, to say, yes, I was surprised by a bill I got. Well, believe it or not, the public cloud providers, and specifically I'll talk about AWS, don't like it when that happens to you. because that creates an unhappy customer. And by the way, it may create a customer that says, time out, I'm going to stall my migration and build of new solutions in AWS because it costs too much. So AWS has actually partnered with us and tested and helped us perfect our algorithms for predicting which jobs make the most sense to migrate from your data center or private cloud to AWS, and what the cost of a new application you're building is, and what environmental constraints, pricing models, performance constraints you should put on an AWS environment to get the lowest total cost. So we're partnering in a big way with the public cloud providers to make sure that when you get there, that our solutions are going to help you in managing that environment just as effectively as we did when you were in the private cloud and on-prem data center environment. And so with that, I would like to invite my friend Blake Blackwell, Principal Architect at Chesapeake Energy, to join me on stage. Hey, Blake.
How are you doing? Good, good.
Blake, thanks so much for joining us. So if you don't know a little bit about Chesapeake Energy, let me tell you. Chesapeake is a multi-billion-dollar, almost $10 billion revenue energy exploration company. And you can imagine in that business, it is a big, complicated business. And Blake has a big responsibility there. Let me let you tell us a little bit more about Chesapeake and your responsibilities at Chesapeake.
Sure. So yes, Chesapeake Energy is an exploration and production company, which means we are in the business of getting oil and natural gas out of the ground and then deliver to all of you at cost. So that is a very challenging industry because we've had a lot of price pressure recently. And then we're also dealing with everything underground and trying to figure out what's going on out there, and then also provide stable, optimal operations out in the field to ensure that we are getting the most value of the assets that we have underneath the ground. My role there is Principal Data Architect. Before then, I was one of these pushy developers that you've been mentioning here on stage.
No, not pushy. Demanding.
Demanding developers, yes. But as Principal Data Architect, my job is to make sure that we are actually using data in its most effective form. One of the things that has been said recently is that the new oil field is data. And that is something that we can relate to on multiple levels at Chesapeake Energy as we deal with that data complexity and try to use it in predictive analytics and machine learning and other types of functions to actually derive the most value for us as a company and for the customers.
So you talked about data, and you talked about the fact that even though you're an energy company, it's really all about the data that's coming out of your equipment. Tell us a little bit about your initiatives in the area of data and analytics.
Sure. So we use IoT data exclusively on all of our wells. All of our operations have sensors that we are monitoring that data. And we have for over 20 years. SCADA systems has been something that oil and gas companies have used for a long time. Now what's new is we're actually using that IoT data to drive how people do their operations in the field. So predictive maintenance is huge because if we can keep an oil well running, that is oil that we continue to get out of the ground to continue to drive our revenue streams. So we've used that in conjunction with Microsoft Azure and Azure services to get mobile applications into people's hands to change the way they operate on a day-to-day basis. So rather than just running a prescriptive route, we now, based on the sensors, use that predictive analytics to then determine where people should go to do the most value based off the economics of a well, based off the severity of the problem on a well, and people then go to that immediately based off of that.
Okay, so you're using the power of big data and analytics to predict failures, problems, to drive more well uptime and the productivity of your service organization as well. Really, really powerful. Why did you choose the public cloud as a mechanism for achieving that outcome?
Sure. So just like you've mentioned already, security has been a challenge for a long time for us as an organization. And we've done probably the classic approach of have the firewall to keep us safe from everything. But as we try to deliver that value into people's hands, we have to actually leverage services that lessen that barrier of entry. So for us, that was Azure. We use things like Power BI to expose our mobile reporting. We use Azure Event Hubs to event messages out to these lease operators. And then we use the capability of serving up mobile applications on their platforms as well. So that allowed and lessened the barrier while also created some greater confidence that these applications were secure as we tried to deliver these operations to people. And the cloud has really kind of opened us up for that type of thing.
So Azure gave you a secure environment, it gave you a scalable environment for big data analytics, and it gave you a link to mobile at scale, at big scale. All right, really powerful. Now, I can't not ask you about how BMC is helping you. So what solutions and how is BMC helping you on that journey?
Right, exactly. So one of the challenges is we just went through a massive oil crunch. So costs kind of dropped out. We went from $100 a barrel to $28 a barrel. And so for several years, our operations kind of went dormant and our technology went dormant. And so when it came to the time to actually do digital transformation at Chesapeake, we had to start looking again at vendors that would enable us to be more agile, to be more DevOps focused. And so we purchased BMC Control M this past spring because we looked at it and we saw things that we liked, such as the jobs as a code approach, the DevOps focus, the ability to orchestrate these jobs across the multi-cloud environment that we're now in. And so we were able to do that type of thing, and that's what's enabled that mobile solution that we were talking about.
Awesome. I mean, a really powerful story of the public cloud, big data analytics, IoT, integrated with a modern DevOps process to drive a business outcome, which is more efficient workforce and better uptime on your revenue-producing products. Fantastic. Blake, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So that section was really about the public cloud, or cloud in general, but we couldn't help but talk about DevOps, right? Because they're often so intertwined with one another. Well, DevOps is great. We all know it. We all are adopting it. But we have challenges. And there's really a push and pull and really an at-odds problem between development and operations. And particularly when we provide operational tooling and processes in the traditional way. If we try to use the traditional control mechanisms, the traditional processes, the traditional tools that we used in our data center environment, developers aren't very happy, right? Because that's the example when we tell them it's going to take 6 months or 6 weeks to get a new environment. That's the example when we tell them, well, it's great that you ran this really fast development process, but we now want you to interact with 6 or 7 different control tools at the end of every day. That's not how developers want to work. And so we have to rethink the way we provide operational tooling, and yes, control, but in a way that isn't as friction-y, that is frictionless, that seamlessly integrates with the DevOps process. And if we do that effectively through things like modern APIs, services that directly integrate into the CI/CD pipeline. By the way, we heard both Simon and Blake talk about how they're using BMC operational tools to drive automation, to automate change management, the updated record of their CMDB. Things that traditionally were cumbersome, they're integrating right into the DevOps process. And so we've been hard at work at innovating to make that possible. And again, when we talk to you about DevOps, you tell us 3 key things. I need choice. I need to be able to use whatever tool I want to use in the context of my DevOps process, and your stuff has to work with it, and it has to do so seamlessly. Secondly, you've said you want improved collaboration. Development and operations, DevOps. By the way, most people don't really use DevOps. What they use is dev, and then they leave ops to the side. There has to be real collaboration. It has to be easy and seamless for development and operations functions, tooling, and processes to work together. And then lastly, all those things need to not only not slow me down, I want operational tooling to speed me up. I want to go even faster with my pipelines and new innovation. And so again here, we've been hard at work. You know, you already heard some great examples from Simon about how we can seamlessly integrate Discovery and Remedy Helix into the DevOps pipeline to automate change management, to automate continuous discovery. We've also done the same thing in the operational tooling area, to be able to use performance management tools in the DevOps process, to be able to easily do compliance and security checks in the build process through the call of an API, through the call of a service in the cloud. We've also done that in automation, and we heard Blake talk quite a bit about how they're leveraging Control M and our automation tools in the DevOps process to accelerate the speed and quality of outcomes. So really exciting innovation here, and you'll hear more about it in the sessions later today. But now it's my pleasure to invite my friend Hyacinth to join me on stage from Anthem. Hyacinth? Hyacinth, thank you for being here, and thank you also. Hyacinth just got back from an international vacation with many time zone differences, and then she came right here to support us, so thanks for doing that as well.
My pleasure.
So Anthem, you probably know, is a healthcare services provider, but what you might not know is that they have $90 billion in revenue. Think about that scale. And they serve 73 million people in the United States. That's more than 20% of the US population is dependent on healthcare services from Anthem. So Hyacinth, tell us a little bit more about Anthem and your role.
Right. At Anthem, we serve our members in 14 states. That includes commercial and government population, which includes Medicare and Medicaid programs. We also have specialty products like dental, vision, life and disability outside these 14 states. And commercial includes national, local, and individual accounts. Including these administrative services and other healthcare services we provide, we serve more than 73 million members. Yes.
That's big
73
and
million
complicated.
members, yes.
And digital is a big part of your journey.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about your role.
Yes, my team and I, we are responsible for the delivery of data services, quality controls, and operational effectiveness across all the data platforms. We are also responsible for advancing or progressing testing automations with AI, cloud strategy, DevOps, and data ops. Now, data ops is an extension of DevOps with additional statistical process controls in place for us to continuously monitor the data quality so that we can report on the anomalies or outliers to our business customers. So
Very
that's
good.
kind of our, essentially, my responsibility.
It's a pretty broad mandate. I wish you a lot of luck. So you talked about Agile and DevOps, and that's a priority. Can you talk about why and kind of the journey of Anthem in this area?
Sure. In support of our One Anthem transformation efforts, we have adopted Agile and DevOps practices at Anthem. This truly complements our IT strategy to kind of enable and streamline much more cost-effective and scalable solutions. And of course, execution excellence is a key driver of our business strategy as well. And so, Bill, for DevOps, our primary goal is really to improve on that digital business agility, accelerating the time to market for our business critical applications with improved quality and stability. Now, for example, we have really very time sensitive member health applications. You all would have heard about it related to our high risk patients, provider profiling, and so forth. And so that digital agility and quality is very critical for us.
So yeah, 73 million people depending on your ability to keep them healthy, and in high-risk situations, being able to react very quickly to approve things that are important to their life.
Right.
So what were some of the challenges? You mentioned you want to move faster and you want to be able to adapt and be more agile for change. What were some of the challenges that you had to struggle with in implementing DevOps and Agile?
Yeah, we looked at the end-to-end delivery process with the three-facet approach. People, process, and technology, and we came up with a list of process gaps and technology bottlenecks where we saw manual as well as low levels of automations. For example, with the workload migrations, the SLAs used to be around 3 to 10 days, and we were able to...
Nobody's going to be happy with a 3 to 10 day wait time.
Yes, but we were able to immediately come up with some action items working with your team.
That's great. And what did the 3 to 10 days turn into?
Around 30 minutes now.
That's a huge difference,
yes.
and that's agility.
Yes.
So Hyacinth, just tell us a little bit more about kind of the solutions from BMC and how you've employed them to achieve those kinds of outcomes.
Sure. Together, our enterprise technology and data solutions team, we worked hand in hand with the BMC team, and the group came up with an optimized solution to automate and orchestrate our workflows using the Control-M Change Manager technology. It was really an amazing job by the team, very collaborative, and we were able to achieve our goals. For example, we were able to enable that high availability 24/7 for our business critical applications. And it's not just the frequency, Bill, it's also the agility, right?
Yes.
Right? And so we were able to reduce the SLAs, as I mentioned, which used to be anywhere between 3 to 10 days to around like 30 minutes.
30 minutes is pretty good. 30 seconds would be even better.
Maybe Paulson can do sometimes.
We'll talk to the Control-M team later.
Right.
Well,
but it's all automated, right?
Yep.
So we do have some controls in place not to compromise the, our security
Yep.
and compliance policies, right? So we do have those checks in place that takes that 30 minutes.
I think it's just another fantastic example, Hyacinth, around how you've implemented modern DevOps and Agile processes, but still allowed for the control mechanisms that are important to making sure that we stay compliant and that bad things don't happen, while getting incredible improvements in speed and agility.
Speed and agility, we were able to improve on the quality as well, that we are still working on meeting some of the targets. And of course, we were able to reduce the total cost of ownership as well. We are working on the collaborations between the teams as well, which is kind of noteworthy.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
When developers start to think that operational tooling might not be so bad, we've accomplished something big. Well, this is exciting. I mean, I don't know about you guys. If you're a customer of Anthem's, I feel a lot better about my health and safety right now. So thank you very, very much, Hyacinth. Thank you. So let's move on to our next challenge and opportunity area, cognitive. And again, cognitive is a big word. We throw it around in conjunction with ML and AI and every other buzzword around large volumes of data these days and how to get leverage from them. But again, as we've talked to you, what you've told us is cognitive's great, the idea of machine learning, leveraging insights from data. But when I do that, it has to be available to people who can take advantage of it. So if it's not a machine, if it's a human, I need it available in whatever form the human wants to interact. Maybe that's a chatbot through SMS on my mobile phone. Maybe that's a developer wanting to communicate through Slack. Whatever the form of communication, we need to be able to deliver the power of data and insights through that method so that people take advantage. Secondly, self-managed. You told us that it's great to have data insights, but then we need to be able to do something with those data insights. We need to be able to go automate a change, improve an environment, fix a problem before it occurs. And then lastly, we need to be able to leverage big data, and that requires new levels of automation. You told us that turning data into insights can't happen at human scale. It has to happen through technology and automation. And so again here, we've been hard at work. And you heard some comments already about the fact that we're driving new levels of automation in the service desk. How do we remove manual intervention in ticketing? How do we remove people from the ticketing process as much as possible and elevate them to new levels of work? How do we give you the choice of AI platform? By the way, we're developing all kinds of really cool technology, chatbots, et cetera. But you may say, you know what? I've got a unique use case, and it really requires IBM Watson, or it requires Google TensorFlow. We need to give you that choice so that our platform can leverage your cognitive machine learning and AI tool of choice. In operations, we have to be able to do predictive monitoring. We have to be able to see a problem before it occurs, whether it's a performance problem, an outage problem, and we need to be able to self-remediate and heal that environment before a performance degradation even occurs. And we're doing huge amounts of innovation in that area as well. And then lastly, with respect to big data, it's great, but we've got to automate our ability to deal with it. Humans cannot deal with the volume of information that's at our hands. And we heard about that from Blake and others today. that we've got to be able to leverage automation to be able to deliver the outcomes that we look for from data insights. Now, I want to talk about one specific example of that from BMC. So we talk about the service desk of the future, and we think about the fact that the today version is there's a lot of people involved. And people are great, but people make mistakes, and quite frankly, people cost a lot of money even when they're doing mundane things. And if all of you in the room expect to have more digital services in the future, more of your business dependent upon digital services, that probably means you're going to have more issues. That probably means you're going to need more people on the help desk if we don't do something about it. And that's not an outcome that any of us want. Low-value work being done by humans with more error-prone outcomes and more cost. And so in the future, I think all of us envision that we're going to leverage cognitive and data insights to be able to reduce the amount of people that we need to do those mundane tasks and take that money and those good people and put them in places where they're working on more important things. Well, I'm excited to tell you that earlier this year, as a part of the Helix launch, we launched our own chatbot technology. And we now have it implemented in production with many customers around the world. And in particular, I'll give you one example. George Washington University in Washington, D.C., big university, 27,000 students who are dependent upon IT services from the George Washington University IT organization. They implemented and deployed our technology earlier this year, and they were able to automate 60% of the activities that flow through their help desk. That is an incredible number. And every day, I guarantee you, all of us are interacting with chatbots, and we don't even know it. We think there's probably a human on the other end, and it's not. It's a machine. This technology is advancing very, very quickly, and it has huge benefits in terms of reducing cost and increasing the quality of outcomes and the service that we provide end users. So I'm excited to tell you that BMC is investing big here, and it's not just an idea. It's real, with production customers getting incredibly powerful metrics out of this technology. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about data insights, but I want to invite a friend of mine on stage to lead the conversation. Bill Miller from our Mainframe Z Solutions group is going to join me, because where is there more data in the world than the mainframe? I'm not sure. I think the mainframe's got a lot of data to be leveraged. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, brother.
Bill
Bill squared. This may surprise you. We heard a lot of cool things today, but I kind of think the mainframe is pretty cool too. Anybody believe that? How many folks in the room here really appreciate the value of the mainframe? Oh, yeah. Okay, the three people in the front row.
I love mainframe.
Okay, thank you. The good news is that was my CEO, so that's a good start. On a serious tone, how many folks today think they might have connected with a mainframe with one of their mobile devices? And I'll bet you it's about 95% of the folks in the room. The mainframe is really omnipresent still in IT. 87% of the credit card transactions run through the mainframe. 65% of production workloads go through the mainframe. As Bill so adroitly put out a minute ago, over half the world's data is still on the mainframe. The mainframe has been part of BMC for almost 40 years now. We've been developing solutions, serving our customers, we think, in a pretty great fashion so they can do great with their business. So today what we'd like to talk about, as Peter and Dan said, is something we're announcing today in New York and overseas, and that's our next journey in mainframe, and that's AIMI, Automated Mainframe Intelligence. I'm going to call it AIMI because I'll trip over the words too many times. But AIMI is a cool thing for us, and it's a cool thing, I think, for our customers. You heard today about a lot of the challenge that we have in IT, you know, the increasing workloads, the number of transactions that's going up, compliance, security, too many manual processes, skills. In mainframe, we've got an aging workforce challenge with our skills are depleting as people are retiring. So what AIMI is going to bring to the table for our customers is about 4 significant things. It's the domain expertise that we've built over the years. It's intelligent automation, driving down the number of manual interventions we need to get done. It's truly bringing machine learning to the mainframe. I think Peter called it AI to the mainframe. and predictive analytics that allow us to make quicker, faster decisions before bad things happen down the road. So all of these things will be coming to the table for us as we implement our AIME strategy and we roll out our AIME products over the next couple of quarters. This will allow our customers to automatically manage, diagnose, heal, secure, and optimize the mainframe. So we're very excited about it as a team. We think it's the ticket for our customers to get really even more value out of the mainframe, to show everybody the significant platform it is. For most of our mainframe customers, the mainframe is really the linchpin to their success in digital business, and we're proud about that. So talk a little bit about where we are today. Well, today we have quite a few solutions that we deliver for our customers. On the right-hand side of the chart, you'll see we have cost solutions, and one of our customers will come up and talk about that in a moment. We have system solutions. We also have data solutions. And recently, like last week, we signed a definitive agreement with a company called Corelog that's in the mainframe security space. So we'll be jumping into the mainframe security market in about 30 days with Corelog, which we're really excited about also. So that'll enable us to identify, for example, and get a security alert if somebody goes into a database that should be in there trying to get some information out. So that'll really give us a home run with all aspects of what we're looking for mainframe. If we go back to AIME for a minute, on the left side of the chart, these are a couple highlights of the things that AIME will do for us. The first one is we call looking around the corner. And what that means simply is helping a customer identify a problem before it even occurs so it will never become a problem. So that's looking around the corner with the analytics that we'll provide our customers. The second thing, Bill talked about DevOps. We've got some work to do there to connect the mainframe data more effectively to DevOps so that velocity can increase between that so they can get their job done a lot quicker. And we're announcing a product that'll come out in a couple of quarters that is AIME for DevOps. And finally, with AIME, we'll be delivering data extractors to the marketplace. We've already announced one in IMS, and we'll be doing that over the next couple of quarters with our other data. What this will do is provide filtered real-time data to our customers' analytic engines, whether it's Splunk or whatever it might be, Spark, et cetera, in a way that they can use it, real-time data that shows up in their dashboards right away so they can use it sort of out of the box versus the plethora of data we see from other entities that we're competing with. So a lot of good things going on with AIME. And this is just a picture of all the different things that our team will be doing to deliver to our customers. On the left are the data sources. Let's say that's mainframe. And in the middle, you see all of those type of things that we'll be providing highlighted by our embedded domain experience that our teams have built up over the years. From virtualization to intelligent alarms, predictive analytics I talked about, intelligent automation, all the way through problem determination. All of these processes will be embedded into our technology to our customers so that they will truly be able to have mainframe data participate in their enterprise data environment so they make quicker, faster decisions with all the technology we provide. So it's a great day for our mainframe team globally. We're very excited about AIME. We think it's our ticket to the future of mainframe. But I'm even more excited today because it's with great pleasure I bring up one of our customers, Greg Kimbrough from Thrivent, who's going to talk a little bit about the BMC partnership with Thrivent. Greg? Now, before we start, some people know I'm a little bit of a sports nut. So Greg, we bleed black and gold. Yes. We're both from Pittsburgh. So is there a comment you'd like to make up front about the Steelers?
Well, the one thing I've been thinking about, and I finally realized the problem the Steelers has been, is that they finally realized that the exhibition season has actually ended. It took them 5 weeks to finally say, oh yeah, we're still not there now. Now they're playing, so they're getting there.
All right, well, one in a row is better than
yes.
Zero, so we'll take it at this point. So hopefully the Steelers will get home. Maybe they can figure out a way to use AIME. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think they could. We can do that. So Greg, again, thanks for coming. We appreciate your business. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about Thrivent, please.
As it says on there, I don't think it does, but I actually have mainframe and shared services there at Thrivent Financial, which means I got some other things off the platform as far as the mainframe is concerned. I've been there 18 months, and the reason why I took the job, I've been doing this for quite some time, as far as mainframe engineering, re-architecting. That's my passion, that's what I love to do, is that they merged back in the early 2000s, and they rely heavily on the mainframe. What Thrivent is trying to do going forward, we're a fraternal benefit society. So we focus on religious organizations. In the early, when it started, it was just Lutherans. Now it's branched out to Christians, and now all religious denominations. So for us to do that, we have to get our mainframe infrastructure from, and basically it's about 20 years stagnant. Wow. One of our mantras is to be wise with our members' money. And I think in the past couple of decades, the thing was that don't spend the members' money. So we're very archaic, technical debt, modernization. That's what I'm there to do, and BMC is has already greatly helped with that process.
Well, Greg, it sounds like you got a big challenge on your hands, but I know you've used a couple of our products so far, particularly to help you with some of the cost challenges you have. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. One of the things that, being there for 18 months, and I've never really shared this with you or anybody else, when I was interviewing for the job, I actually turned it down twice. And they were, of course, throwing money at me. And the CIO finally called me, and I said, money's not really the problem. The problem is that I don't see your commitment to getting out of technical debt, reducing your costs. I can help you do this, but there are some products out there that we should invest in. And after I accepted the job, to show his commitment, I was involved with CMF, replacing RMF's, or IBM's RMF tool, and CASI. Without CASI, and the time frame that we're trying to do and save money, that it could not have been done.
What is CASI, just for the audience?
Oh, sorry. Cost Analyzer for C. There's an E on the end of it, but CASI's good enough. And basically, what it helped us do, as my team and Thrivent Financial, they really didn't know the mainframe environment that we had there. What's running, what's costing the most money, what's doing this and doing that. And CASI helps you do that. With that, once I got there, I was able to reduce, from 263 MSUs. And MSUs, is basically subcapacity, for those who may not know the mainframe, PVUs. And reduce that down to 240. And right now, currently with CASI monitoring, we are down to 208 MSUs. Wow. And part of that process was that we implemented COBOL 6.1 from IBM. We're a heavy legacy COBOL shop. And CASI was able to tell us that as we took one of our larger applications and converted to COBOL 6.1, that we saw a 20% savings in that application itself. Awesome. Which of course reduces MSUs. So for the first 6 months of last year, when we brought the product in, we were able to save over $500,000.
Awesome. So great return for your investment with BMC for that. And tell us a little bit for the audience here. We don't have a large mainframe audience here, but tell us a little bit about how important the mainframe is to you and your end user customers.
Okay. As I kind of mentioned earlier, as far as Thrivent Financial and where we're heading, and kind of you just mentioned, there is a lot of member-facing data on the mainframe. Yeah. And I'm sure some of you have heard system of record. For us, that is the mainframe. We keep practically 7 years worth of data and files, databases on the mainframe. So our customers going out there as they want to see how their investments are growing, things are doing, looking at this data. So we want to improve that response time for them. And also part of Thrivent is keeping up with technology, as far as, mainframe architecture, creating DevOps and not impacting production. And so with that is what we're trying to do, and that's what we're trying to get to as far as further down the road.
And what about, I know you're embarking on this 2020 project.
Okay.
How is that progressing, and how is BMC going to be able to help you with that? Okay.
Mainframe 2020, what I was charged to do when I arrived at Thrivent, and was to basically modernize the mainframe, the architecture. And as I realized, as I said, I own some assets, we call them, so software off the mainframe. Mid-tier, storage, things of that nature. And I'm noticing all this traffic, using CASI, CMF. Amy's going to help us further do that, that particular analysis, so that as we are branching out with other, religious organizations, their culture, their diversity, we need to be able to respond to that. Yeah. And as they're developing, they being the business, new products for these organizations, the mainframe has to be there and respond quickly, not cause any problems, and that's the development part of it. So part of Mainframe 2020 is to create a development, logical partition, so that work can continue on and not impact the members and the business in itself as we're growing.
And we talked a little bit about Amy earlier. How impactful can that specifically be to your environment over those next couple of years?
As I see, as we're branching out, and right now we've already created one new production LPAR, we're getting ready to do a couple more, and then do our development LPAR. I need to be able to see as we're moving workloads around, and the big key is seamless. So seamless means not impacting the business, but also as we're developing new products, that predictive analysis and CASI, okay, when we move this around, what am I seeing? Are my MSUs increasing as far as my subcapacity, costing me more software, or they're decreasing? Because we're still in the phase of that, hey, we still want to grow the business.
Sure.
But also, we want to also save more money, reduce our costs.
Right. Well, I think hopefully you'll see with Amy the ability to see around the corner, eliminate a lot of those manual processes, give you better predictive analysis, and leverage our domain experience as I talked about earlier. So, great. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for the business. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
And Bill, I'll say long live the mainframe. Can I end with that? Long live the mainframe.
I'll go on record as saying, Bill, I think the mainframe is cool.
Okay.
So the final opportunity and challenge area that we'll talk about is security. And as we've talked to you about security and the fact that security and compliance doesn't get easier, it actually gets harder in a world full of multi-cloud and DevOps and more digital solutions and digital services, you've told us a few things. You need improved visibility. You have to understand where your assets are, how they change, what the dependencies are between physical assets and applications. And in this chaotic world of DevOps and Agile, that gets a lot harder. You've told us that you need to understand where your risks are. You have to understand if a developer created a new environment in AWS and left a port open or had an unsecure configuration. You need to know these things. And then you need to be able to respond faster in an automated fashion when you discover those problems and those security and compliance risks. So again here, we've been hard at work. We've been hard at work rethinking the way that service management is delivered so that you can discover everywhere, so that you can discover assets wherever they might be. And by the way, to do so, as you heard Simon talk about, in the context of a DevOps process, so that when we have a change and a new configuration, a developer doesn't have to log into the CMDB and register a change. It happens automatically. We've been rethinking operations and delivering new solutions that proactively go out and identify security concerns. We want to let developers use the public cloud. We want them to be able to create environments, but we have to provide compliance and security checks against them. Well, let's do that as a service. Let's do it as a part of the CI/CD pipeline. Let's, every time they create a new environment or they make a new change, let's check the environment and make sure there isn't an open port or a weak password or some other compliance or configuration or security risk. Let's make it seamless. Let's make it easy. And then lastly, we have to drive automation. We cannot expect humans to ensure that we're compliant and secure at the pace and rate of change and with the number of new digital services that we're creating. And so again here, we've innovated in ways to allow you to automate change management for things like vulnerability remediation, cloud environment security posture assessment, so that those things happen in an automated fashion. When we find that open port in AWS, we close it and we send the developer a note and say, hey, you left that port open, we closed it, just so you know. Those things have to happen in an automated way to protect our organization from risk. So to talk more about this, I am very excited to invite Steve Vargo from PNC Bank to join me on stage.
Thanks, Bill.
Steve, thanks for being here. And before we get into the experience at PNC, I got to thank you. So Steve, first of all, traveled from Pittsburgh to be here. Secondly, he's already been here several days because he participated in a customer advisory board here in New York for the last couple of days. And then thirdly, and this came as a surprise to me last night when I invited him to dinner, He said, well, Bill, I can't go to dinner. I have a BMC Go Live tonight at 11 o'clock, and I need to be in my hotel room making sure things don't go wrong. So I said to Steve this morning, I was really happy at midnight when I got the green alert email that said, PNC Go Live went well. So yes. Thanks, Steve, for being here.
Yeah,
you got a lot on your plate.
This would have been a very different conversation.
I might have been giving your talk for you. I don't know. So PNC Bank, if you don't know, is a top 10 U.S. bank with $380 billion in assets, operating in 19 states with 2,500 branches and 9,000 ATMs. So this is a scale operation, and there are a lot of threats and security concerns like any financial institution has, but at the scale that Steve operates, they're even greater. So Steve, tell us a little bit more about you and the bank.
Sure. So 4 years ago, PNC went down on a pretty significant journey to really tackle all of the aging assets and technologies that they had in the environment. So at the time, they invested $1.2 billion in the infrastructure and applications. At the time, it was, I don't know if it was the largest or one of the largest investments in technology at the time. So what that investment allowed us to do was modernize our data centers, a lot of our applications, and really set us up for where we are today. So we are finishing up those data center consolidations and really looking at going the next step, which is our DevOps initiative and then our digital national expansion. So today we have branches in 19 different states, mostly on the eastern side of the United States. And we're taking a different approach in how we're going to do some things moving forward. So historically, in the financial services industry, how you grow is through merger and acquisition. We're taking a different approach because of who our really our new audience is. And Peter touched on this at the beginning of the presentation and really hit a lot of the keynotes that I was going to touch here. So next time when you give that, let's tie off, make sure that we're... But you know, he hit the nail right on the head as far as, you know, when you look at millennials and even everybody here, how you interact with your financial institutions. When was the last time that anybody has really went into a branch? It's very few and far between when you need to do that anymore. We're looking at expanding some technologies as it pertains to video conferencing, mobile branches, so that we can deploy to whenever there's a place where there's a large gathering, whether it be a concert or even something like a natural disaster, where we can send out you know, technology to the people who need it. So with that, in conjunction with our DevOps initiative, we're obviously pivoting from a lot of our kind of legacy mindset of the slow and steady bank to really becoming a financial institution that is focused on software development and delivering new and exciting innovation to our customers.
So that's a big deal. I mean, you're basically saying that the traditional method for growing, and PNC wants to keep growing, is buy another company, open another branch, and now you've completely rethought your business strategy, and it's reliant on digital services for expansion and growth. You know, I mean, just a great testament to how all of us are facing not only disruption, but opportunity with digital transformation. Now, you know, we talked a lot about security today, and with more innovation comes more risk, and it's hard to keep up with that risk. Tell us a little bit about security and compliance and how you think about that at PNC.
Sure. So as part of my role at PNC, monitoring, compliance, security, patching, all roll up to my organization. So we are in a unique situation during our migration into our new data centers where we could take the opportunity to make sure that we had some architectural governance in place to make sure that all of the servers that are being migrated into the data centers are at a certain level of spec. So it makes it a lot easier as it pertains to keeping track of the compliance and security within your environment. So prior to that, it really was like the wild, wild west. People were using a ton of different technologies to try to patch, to try to handle a lot of the different security issues in the environment. And we brought in BladeLogic server automation, and that gave us one platform that we can cover both Windows, Linux, the compliance. We were going down the path of using Threat Director, so it's adding automation. And automation really is the key. When you get to the scale and scope of what PNC is, you can't do things manually. You have to leverage tools like BMC have to be able to automate everything that you do.
That's awesome. So, at your scale, server management of vulnerabilities, network management of vulnerabilities, big challenge, you need automation. Give us a sense for kind of some of the metrics that you've driven in your program.
Sure. So, again, when I had mentioned about it being disparate systems, we were at a cadence of patching for Windows on a monthly basis, and then for the Linux space on a quarterly basis. So we now have them down to both patching on a monthly basis, and even more frequent as needed, when there's patches that need to be applied. And then when we looked at bringing in Threat Director to tackle some of the vulnerabilities that were in the environment, my leadership gave me a challenge and said, hey, we have this backlog, and I need you to go out, get the tool deployed, and drive these down in 90 days.
Okay.
So it was, it was quite the challenge.
It's a challenge.
Yes. So we created a SWAT team, and we brought in the Threat Director product. And in the 90-day time period, we were able to remediate 13,000 vulnerabilities in the environment, which was unheard of to this point.
That's awesome. And Steve, I think also we did some work together around blind spots, because one of the problems in every organization is that you think you know what all your assets are and where they are, but not always the case. In fact, let's be honest, all of us don't know how to track 100% of our assets. And if we don't know what our assets are and where they are, then we can't make sure we don't have a compliance or security or vulnerability concern. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So we all know that in everybody's organization, the CMDB, regardless of what vendor that you're using, is always a struggle. How do you know what you have, especially from a monitoring perspective? If you don't know what it is, you can't monitor it. But looking at it underneath the security lens, you can't secure it if you don't know what it is, and that's even a bigger problem. So we were using two different optics, one of which was our Nessus vulnerability scanner, and then the other one was the scanner coming off of our CMDB from ServiceNow. And we knew that there were gaps just from doing some of the data analysis. So we brought in BMC Discovery, and in as little time as 3 months, we were able to close the gap and show blind spots that both of those systems did not detect, and set up an automated remediation so that we can get that data to the teams, enrich the CMDB data to make it better, and close our risk profile as it pertains to what's on the wire.
That's awesome. And I think what I heard you say was that our discovery technology was better than a partner and a competitor. So thanks very much for that. So we've worked really closely together, Steve, and you've been really helpful to us in terms of perfecting some of this automation. But talk a little bit about how BMC's partnered with you to drive value.
So obviously, as I had said, it was mandated to me that I need to get a lot of work done in a short amount of time. So within the past year, we've stood up Discovery, BAO, TrueSight, Threat Detector, probably missing one out there. But a lot of tools in a short amount of time. And we leveraged a lot of your services, as well as the customer success organization. And without them, it really wouldn't have been possible to pull off, a lot of the numbers that I'm up here stating today. So thank you for that partnership and
thank
allowing
you,
us to
Steve.
be successful.
You've been a great customer, and quite frankly, we've learned a lot from you about how to help with security, vulnerability remediation, and automation. It's been a fantastic relationship, and we really appreciate it. And I hope every time I see you, we're waking up in the morning talking about a green go live. Thanks very much for being here. Okay, so we've covered the 4 critical areas: cloud, DevOps, cognitive and machine learning, and then also security and compliance. And we've talked about BMC's open, scalable, and modular approach to partner with you to help you succeed in running and reinventing your business while you digitally transform. All of this capability comes together in that open, scalable, and modular framework to help you address those 4 imperatives and support all of the environments and processes required for you to succeed. And that's BMC's mission, and that's our promise to you, is that we will continue to innovate to ensure that we can be your partner. Now, while we live in exciting times, we also live in scary times, right? The levels of disruption that's happening in all of our industries is exciting if we're on the right end of it, and scary if we're on the wrong end of it. And you might look at this prediction of 50% of the S&P 500 will be replaced over the next 10 years and say, well, who knows? That's a crazy prediction, Bill. No, I don't know where you got it from. Well, the reality is, it's true for the past 10 years. If you look back 10 years, half of the S&P 500 isn't there anymore. And it's because of disruption that happens in industry. And right now, we are at an opportunity point where there is more chance to be a disruptor and to be disrupted than ever before by the use of technology. And while that's scary, I want to tell you, you made the first right step because you're here with us. And BMC is committed to making sure that you are the disruptor and not the disrupted. I want to thank you all very much for your time this morning. I hope it was enjoyable. I want to thank all of our customers for joining me on stage. And I want to invite all of you to take a 15-minute break directly behind you, where we'll have coffee, and then we'll rejoin in 15 minutes in this room. Thank you very much.
seats. We're about to begin. Please welcome Dan Streetman, Executive Vice President, ES.
I heard you. I heard you. Thanks very much, everyone, for returning back from the break. We got a lot more exciting things to go. One of the things you might not have noticed today, I am wearing some special shoes. All right. Now, these are in honor of some other innovation happening here in New York, because New York is a great sports town. So I would like to give a shout out to the Knicks for their 126-107 crushing of Atlanta Hawks. Yeah, let's hear it. That was a great game last night. I think they've got a lot in store for them. They've got clearly the advantage of having a lot of space to move up. But it was a great game last night, and a lot of innovation we expect to see. Speaking of innovation, now is a chance to offer our BMC Innovation Award. During our BMC Exchange events, in every region we do this, we present an Innovation Award to recognize a particularly remarkable accomplishment, which helps us understand the exceptional things our customers are doing in partnership with us to push the boundaries of running and reinventing their businesses. And it's a great opportunity for us to really profoundly change our perception of what's possible. So as I talk about Innovation Award today, it really represents some groundbreaking work focused on making use of our technology to make their operations more productive, more secure, more cost-effective. And so really without any further ado, I'd like to move right on to talking about our award winner. This is one of the world's largest banks, supporting clients in more than 160 countries. It's the world's largest credit card issuer, with a mission to create a better client experience through digital and mobile. They've got premier relationships with flagship brands like American Airlines, Best Buy, Costco, LL Bean, Home Depot. They clearly know what it means to run and reinvent their business. So ladies and gentlemen, please give me a big round of applause for Citigroup. And I'll ask Roman Portnov and Albert to come up to the stage in a moment, but I want to talk a little bit about all they've accomplished. They're both senior vice presidents at Citibank, and their team, the Global Capacity and Performance Management team, has incorporated TrueSight capacity optimization as a key part of their strategy. What they need to do is make sure their internal and external applications are providing optimal performance at all times. So they gather daily performance metrics on their servers from over 150,000 nodes, and then they pull in hundreds of business critical metrics along with that. And then they take both those streams of historical data and they actually predict what future performance will look like. So TrueSight capacity optimization's reporting capabilities help their team to better gauge their business, their demand, and create opportunities for establishing new asset optimization. So Roman and Albert, would you please join us up on stage? So I'm really happy to have you here. This is fantastic. And so it's not just about the technology, and Peter's going to join us as well. We're going to present the award in a second. I really want to highlight what's happened here. They're using technology across multiple Citi business units to optimize their business services. And that is one of the key reasons that Citibank has been ranked #1 in customer satisfaction among national banks for 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row, that's pretty phenomenal. The American Consumer Satisfaction Index, ASCI, rates Citibank's operations as #1 in loyalty, #1 in website satisfaction, #1 in ease of adding and changing accounts, and speed of transactions. So thanks to a lot of the work these guys do, Citibank is thriving, and we're really happy to have you here up on stage. Let me get your award. Ladies and gentlemen, Albert, Roman, Citibank. Round of applause, please.
Come on in for a picture.
Come on in, Pat, for a picture. Let's hand you this. Give me a handshake here, Roman. Hey, Derek, let's get one more. We were missing. He was leaving me hanging on the handshake, and I don't. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Congratulations, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. I'll see you guys in a few hours.
Thanks, Albert. I put the clicker in my pocket, so let's pull this thing up. Now I'm incredibly excited to welcome our next speaker. His name is Dr. Lyle Unger. As I mentioned this morning, Dr. Unger is currently a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. He's a professor of computer and information sciences in the School of Engineering, but he also teaches operations, information and decisions in the Wharton School, genomics and computational biology in Penn's Medical School, and psychology in the College of Arts and Sciences. Basically, Dr. Unger is like the Bo Jackson of data science and artificial intelligence. For you millennials, feel free to pull out your phones and look up Bo Jackson. But in addition to his teaching work, he consults for a variety of Fortune 500 companies, including BMC. His research is focused on statistical natural language processing, deep learning, and also the use of social media to understand the psychology of individuals and communities. Today, Dr. Unger is going to focus on how artificial intelligence and deep learning are changing the industry. I'm really happy to welcome to the stage and ask you to join me in welcoming Dr. Lyle Unger.
Thank you. Great, awesome to be here. I've noticed starting probably 10 years ago, a wave of technical change starting at companies like Google and Amazon and Facebook in the last few years percolating to, well, all the companies you're at. And I've noticed an equally large, maybe larger wave of hype. And so I wanted to talk today a little bit about what AI is and maybe what AI isn't and how it's changing industries and jobs. I want to start by a really quick retrospective of AI doing superhuman performance starting way back in the 90s. First world chess championship winning, IBM's Watson, now a major brand, winning at Jeopardy. Things you may have seen less of. Google has a bunch of cars that drive around and take photographs. They try and recognize, is that a 30 or a 32 or a 52 on the street? If you look back in 2011, the computers were getting 9% of them wrong. By 2013, 2.5%. Humans are about 2%. Currently, slightly superhuman performance. If you look at playing Go, you've all seen, right? 2016, World Championship Go. You may not have seen a colleague of mine, Mikhail Kaczynski at Stanford, grab down 40,000 ads, not so many, of either men seeking men or men seeking women in a dating site. Yeah. Last I talked to him, he's getting a lot of coaching from the security guys about the death threats he's getting. Bummer, but given a photo or a set of 5 photos on the dating site, can the computer say if you're gay or straight, if you're looking for a man or a woman? And the answer is, yeah, slightly better than humans do. A little bit scary what information sits inside a picture. Probably more benignly, Microsoft and Baidu both claim to have the world's best translator. You type in Chinese, out comes English. You can try and judge if you speak Chinese, which is the better translation. They're claiming that they are slightly better for Microsoft at translating news than the best professional translators they hire. So lots of tasks that seem really hard and very disparate, AI is doing stunningly well. One question, what's common across all these examples? The answer really is that they're all super specialized and lots of data. Lots of English translations to Chinese, lots of photos of guys looking for guys or guys looking for women, right? Complicated, there's some sort of complicated relationship between English and Chinese, but enough data to train up the models. So I want today to sort of cover 3 things. A quick insight to what's going on in these AI systems, a little bit on why it's hard, when do they fail, when do they not fail, and then to focus a little bit on what's happening in terms of jobs and automation industry. So the way things work are really 3 different categories of approaches. One is to sit down and write down a bunch of business rules. This is the classic IBM Watson to help the call center. If someone asks for this, do this query against the database and do that. These tend to work fairly well, but are pretty expensive, and it's hard to get good coverage. Watson's having a lot of trouble with their cancer diagnosis that they seem to get some things wrong. Second category is looking at optimization and search. Think of supply chain optimization or data center optimization. I won't say much about those. Those are pretty reliable and good. And the one I want to talk mostly about is learning from data, the big data approach. McKinsey, everybody says this is the key basis of competition. It will change your life. It will disrupt everything. Maybe. My favorite quote on it from Harvard Business Review, data scientist, the sexiest job of the 21st century. This is like the only time I've been called sexy. But thank you, HBR. I'll take it wherever I get it. OK, so what does it take to be sexy? Started by being one of the big boys, as they call them. either in the US, and people forget, of course, China has a comparable set for each of these. Companies with lots of data, very clean, big internal cloud systems, and lots of automation. And then a huge set of smaller companies providing services behind to make these things happen. But what are all these things doing? And in some sense, something really stupid. They take an input, an image of a cat or an image of a dog, just the RGB pixels, how much red, green, blue for each of these pixels, and an output label. It's a cat or a dog, and they train some statistical model that says, given this image, which is just a bunch of numbers, predict this label, which is just a label. It's unbelievably stupid, and it works unbelievably well. You got some inputs, you got some outputs, it learns the model between them. Inside, 1 million adjustable parameters, 10 million adjustable parameters, a lot of GPU time, but there's not very much there, which is sort of magical. Lots of them have started, initial ones back sort of 8, 10 years ago that had the first revolution, take images in, take a face. Facebook, you will have noticed, recognizes your face and labels it. They take the pixels in your image, pass it through a bunch of transformation layers, some fancy, complicated equation, and out comes a prediction. Oh, it's you. Cool. Or your dog, or your baby. Where is this used? Images to who or what it is. If you talk to your phone, same thing. In comes the sounds, out comes the characters of English, or whatever language is recognizing. For places like Google and Facebook, in comes the web page you're on, the words on it. In comes one of 10 million possible ads. Out comes the probability of your clicking, or more accurately, the expected discounted cash flow earned by that click. But basically, it's predicting a label based on the pieces there. I've done a lot of stuff taking Facebook words. You can take someone's words. Are they male? Are they female? Are they extroverted? Are they introverted? Are they agreeable or nasty? So lots of prediction tasks. Take images and say, is this cancerous or is this not? Take an image and say, within it, where are the cars? Where are the bicyclists? Where are the pedestrians? Take in a sentence. I love machine learning. And put in output. There is some statistical model that maps any sentence in English to any sentence in Arabic. In the old days, say 4 years ago, Google hired a whole bunch of linguists to write down rules that captured the grammar of English and the grammar of Arabic. That worked pretty well, but not nearly as well as having a bunch of English sentences and a bunch of Arabic translations and just feeding it in to learn the statistical model between it. So note that these dumb things that say, is it a cat or not, are also saying, what's this spoken sentence? Translate it into Arabic, into Chinese, into whatever, right? It's just statistics and just lots of data. Cool. So let's look at a couple case examples to get a little more intuition. Standard piece is take one of 1,000 different items and say this one's a mite. And it works mostly pretty well. Recognizes container ships and motor scooters and leopards. Occasionally gets things wrong. It thinks that Madagascar cat's a squirrel monkey. Oh well. Sometimes these things make errors. But sometimes you get really odd errors. This image is categorized as, I'm not sure, but it's probably a cellular telephone. So why do you get dumb errors like this? I think it's important to remember what this thing is doing. It's a statistical model trained on a whole bunch of images taken, in this case, from YouTube. And what do you see if you see this? Yeah, that's a cell phone, statistically. Almost always a cell phone. Okay, so it's not a cell phone, it's a clicker. But it looks like a cell phone. If it's trying to predict something it's never seen, at least in this case, it knows it hasn't seen it, but it does really badly. Right? These things are good at things they see a lot. If it's different, it says, in this case, you can see it's not very sure, low certainty. Looks like a cell phone, I got no idea. Cool. These same sort of techniques are used for chatbots, or dialogue systems, as they're called in industry. Academia, we call them chatbots because it's more fun. In comes a question, out comes a response. Most of the current chatbots are programmed using rules. Someone sits down and says, if you get this question, put this answer. Or if you're trying to close this ticket, you need to get these 3 pieces of information. Wait until you get them. Keep asking until you get who is it, what date was it done, how many dollars is it. So most of the current ones are pretty stupid, pretty rule-based, but the next generation, which is coming in really quickly, is taking a large database of, here was the query that came to the help desk, here was the answer. Let's learn the statistical mapping. It's the exact same software that says English to Chinese, query to help desk, answer to help desk. Magic. Or statistics, and it works stunningly well on things that you have a lot of previous queries about, and stunningly badly on things it doesn't know. Hopefully it tells you, oops, don't know that one, bump it up to a human. Cool. I want to look a little bit at sort of one case study of where these work, which is Siri. Most of you have used some version of, I'm actually an Android guy, but some sort of a speech recognition system, which is a deep learning system that maps using statistics, deep learning, magic, cognitive, whatever you want to call it, machine learning I call it, from the speech signal to the text. Behind it, and this is of course true of all the BMC systems as well, are huge amounts of data. Lots of facts about the world. How does Siri answer your questions? She has access to everything from Rotten Tomatoes to the New York Times to look up what the facts are that might be relevant. You might think these things are easy, but they're surprisingly hard because English or Chinese or any language is unbelievably ambiguous. So why is AI so hard? A lot of these chatbots try and capture something. What does your computer, by which I mean your phone, of course, hear? It hears some sequence of sounds like book, 4-star, rest-star, aunt, in, people know the band? Boston. Cool. Okay. All it gets is a sequence of sounds coming in if you're talking to it. And you say, great, no problem. I can just look it up. I'll just look up Boston in my database. I looked up Boston in my database. Here are the Bostons I found. There seem to be a lot of them. Which one were you talking about? Well, maybe if I know your GPS location, I can guess, or I can do it based on statistics. Boston, well, I was in Boston, Massachusetts. That's the real Boston, not Boston, Pennsylvania. And you might think a 4-star restaurant was no problem. There are a lot of stars out there, including Star City. In Philadelphia, there's the whole bunch of star restaurants. There's a whole chain called Star Restaurants. And Yelp even has a 4-star restaurant. It's sort of cool. It's in Kaukauna, Wisconsin, which is not in Boston, so we might have to reject it. But lots of 4-star restaurants out there. So every time you try and take a query into your database, to your service desk, it sounds to you as a human like this is unambiguous. It's surprisingly easy for the computer to get confused and not tease apart what it is, unless it's seen a bunch of examples and knows some context. And increasingly what's happening in all these systems is lots of context. Who's calling, what time, what's their geolocation, what's my previous communication with them, what's going on in the area where they're calling from. Lots of information. Trying to code up the logic behind all this information, really hard. What is it that tells you about the current weather in Omaha that might or might not influence what failure you're experiencing? Hard to have built that logic in, but if statistically certain things tend to correlate, then these systems start to recognize them. Cool. What does this mean for jobs? I read all sorts of dire claims that roughly half the US employment's at risk, or maybe more realistically, 10% or 14% of jobs will be lost. Yeah, probably 10% of jobs will be lost. 10% of jobs already were lost in the last decade, right? Very much like the disruption of companies. But I think thinking about job loss is the wrong way. There's a small number of jobs that maybe go away. If I were running call centers in India, I would be worried. I think a lot of those things are going to be automated really quickly. Big companies like IBM and lots of small companies are putting chatbots together to do those. I think longer term, you'll see some of the truck driving where there's a single task that's relatively expensive and fairly monotone. Checkout clerks, you already notice you go to stores. Please scan your own stuff. Get rid of the bagging people. Save a little labor there. But that's mostly not what's happening. It's mostly not jobs going away. And people often hope, oh, AI is going to save all of this time. We'll get rid of all these employees and save ourselves lots of money. Maybe, but I think reality is a little bit different. If you look at the effect of huge automation in the US in the last decade, last I checked, unemployment is very low. All the economists I talk to say there are plenty of jobs. They may not be the jobs people want or the training for them. There are shortages. Certainly, my students are doing really well getting jobs, machine learning. But so far, the job loss is almost zero. Some gets destroyed, but more get created. And in fact, mostly what's being automated are tasks, not jobs. So we need to think about what is AI going to do for you. Not replace jobs, not even you, not even your people under you. It's going to replace tasks that people are doing. And I think sort of the poster child example for this comes from the banking industry. And you can look from 1970 to 2010, ATMs came in from nothing to being ubiquitous. And the number of bank tellers went from about 300,000 up to 600,000. Whoa, whoa, whoa. ATMs came in, became the place everybody went to get money, and there were more jobs as bank tellers. What happened with this nice automation? Got cheaper. There was a deregulation happening also. Banks wanted lots of branches all around, cheaper to put them in, more tellers. Once it's cheaper and easier, people get money more often. At the ATM, there's more work to take care of them and stock them and more reason to come in. Banks are trying to now sell you additional services, not just be a money vendor. So often automation does not eliminate jobs. Now if you look today, that's 2010. Today it's probably down from 600,000 to 500,000. There has been a bit of a drop and certainly a shift. And if things work successfully, there are two examples this morning, you will be, in fact, doing your banking on your phone. And there really eventually will be fewer tellers. But it takes a long time. And increasingly, companies now say, OK, great. Rather than just eliminating tellers, can we get them to actually help sell something, provide more services at higher profit? Right? So it's not eliminating tellers. It's eliminating handing out $20 bills, right? The task, not the job. Cool. So what is cognitive technology? As the applied side, AI is the technology. Cognitive is sort of the marketing version of it. Targeted marketing initially, think Google and Facebook and Amazon. What are they doing? They're selling the right thing to the right person at the right time. But then to supply chain optimization, process optimization, including data centers, failure prediction analysis, starting with heavy equipment. Initially, it was turbines and rock crushers. They would monitor these things and take the sensors, and you can predict, OK, that rock crusher is going to fail within the next week. Order the part preemptively rather than having downtime. I'm seeing data centers trying to do the same thing. We've noticed some anomalies in your data center. We've taken the liberty of shipping you the replacement disk that we think is going to be the one that's probably going to fail. Try and anticipate those pieces there. Certainly help desk. We're in the middle of a huge wave of automation of help desks. And I'll say a few words about document analysis. You heard about reading contracts from the banks, but pieces there. Help desks. The obvious thing, no one wants to Google, find an FAQ, and read through 37. What people, particularly millennials, expect to do is to text and ask by texting, what's the status with my account? Why did you bounce my check? Or on the business side, this machine seems to be down, what's up? Right? Typical text. And what's going to happen? Chatbots are going to automate lots of these. Is that going to reduce your need for help desk support? I don't think so. What happens as it gets easier and cheaper? More queries come in. People want more response. They expect more service. So you're going to automate the low-end, repetitive, stupid crap and have more expectation on the part of your customers and often your customers, I mean including your own employees and the companies you're working for. I don't mean the customers' customers, but same idea of actually having that information readily available in a nice way, not typing a SQL query or emailing someone, which you're probably like me, you're old, you still send emails? Yeah. Young people don't do slow media like that. They want the text to come. Why would I email someone? And lots of minor updates. I need to change my address. I need to change the amount that's deducted from my savings plan each week. Whatever, that should be a text to a computer that does the correct thing, or if it doesn't know the right thing, bumps it up to the right place. And certainly, you've heard today about examples of lots of routine troubleshooting. After the fact, what's the root cause when those 57 lights went off? And prospectively, what's likely to happen? What's happening also in many industries is a shift of, in fact, the whole business process flow. If you think if you're in a little accident, you want to file an insurance claim, what do you do in the modern era? You pull out your phone, you take a photo of it, you then text that in, you go to the app, you then submit, here's what I claim is what happened to me, here's how much I should be paid for that, here's the image of the receipt from the repair place. What happens? The company then looks at that, processes it, either automatically approves it, or automatically says, this looks a little bit odd. Let's compare this. Similar claims with similar images had very different dollar figures. Lots of automatic flagging of potential fraud. None of the systems that I know actually then accuse you of fraud. What they then do is just alert a human. These are used a lot of things. Ford Motor Company, when the dealers put in a claim for the warranty, they compare the structured data claims against the free text description. Are they statistically consistent? If not, no accusation of fraud, just a little visit. Excuse me, but we've noticed some curious things about your warranty claims. Could we chat a little bit? Certain doctors' offices seem to statistically do slightly more expensive procedures than other comparable doctor offices. Maybe they have sicker people, or maybe they warrant a visit. Right? So note these are all fairly sophisticated statistical detections of anomalies, mostly then alerted to humans to say, OK, you might want to check out what's happening here. Here's the data. Here's the comparable doctor's offices. Give them a call, see what's happening. Legal, lots of legal research. Again, huge amounts of AI automation for preparing these documents. And last I checked, no decrease in the number of paralegals doing the work to prepare them. Lots of document reviews. I signed a lot of non-disclosure agreements. Standard software database of 40,000 NDAs, checks each one. Is there anything unusual here that's not there, that shouldn't be, and vice versa. You heard about banking agreements. Read through these documents. I don't think all lawyers can be put out of business. I don't think we'll stop using lawyers. But lots of times, there's lots of reading and proofreading of the documents. Not proofreading for typos or the misplaced comma, but also proofreading for the content. Normally, we do net 60. This one says net 90. Was there some reason that was changed? So lots of this. I think the other piece of this is to think when you think about data, data increasingly includes the image taken on the camera, the camera by which I mean your phone, that was sent up. It includes the text of the email. It includes the recording of the conversation, right? So you're seeing lots more data that's coming in from the edge, not just data that used to be standard data sitting in databases. And part of what this cognitive AI allows one to do is run statistics over this quite unstructured data. There's a nice example. People know this company called Text.io. My favorite examples of automatic editing. They have a huge database of employment ads placed by different companies and the statistics on who responded or who did not respond to the ads. And companies in general are trying to attract some set of people, often trying to encourage diversity. And they say, we have a wonderful, exciting, diverse environment, and they hope that will attract more minorities. Statistically, oddly enough, the word diverse, not attracting more minorities. A better word statistic would be inclusive. These are the things that data can reveal fairly clearly, whereas, in fact, your intuition, especially if you're not of the right age group or sex group or whatever it is not so good. So here's one example of exceptional programmer thought. This is my industry. Successful candidates will thrive in our fast-paced environment. You must be. Sounds great. You must be is probably not good at attracting anybody. And fast-paced environment statistically attracts male applicants. If you want female applicants, you might want to statistically use a word like energizing environment or exciting environment. Right? So note this statistics, this big data of helping the process, in this case, of writing ads in a way that will lead for whatever results. The computer's not telling you whether you want to attract more men or women. Some industries want more men. The nursing industry at Penn, for example, is trying to attract more men for a more gender balance that way. But what are you doing? Often your language conveys a lot about you and a lot about who you're working for. I want applicants with high GPA. Guess what? No one over 40 applies to those. You've now picked young, fresh graduates. If that's what you want, that's great. But this insight can help you know what's going on there. Text generation. Increasingly, you have lots of data sitting in a database, like, for example, the statistics for each store in some chain or each branch of your bank. And there's nice software now that takes that data and generates stories. For your branch, here's how well you're doing compared to last month. Here's how well you're doing to comparable ones across. It's an auto-generated story. There are sort of fun ones that take the local high school sports statistics and generate New York Times quality stories about here's what happened during the game. Auto-generated, really hard to tell. Financial summaries. Here's our huge P&L statement. Turn it into a text summary that a human could understand. Right, so nice work happening there. Data centers, relevant to most of you. You've seen lots of stuff. I won't say much about it because this is BMC's expertise, not mine. But lots of automated changing the software and servers for security and compliance. Lots of predictive analytics to see what's happening. So what's the big takeaway from these pieces? Routine tasks are getting automated really quickly. If there's a help desk ticket that keeps coming up and up and up and up, there should be a chatbot that then says, here's the information I need. OK, I've made the change. You're all set. And if you have the data, which you often have in your contact center, or you often have because you have the last 10,000 contracts that have been reviewed by your lawyers, throw it in. These systems work surprisingly well. The other piece is change is rather a qualitative one, that the notion of what is data is getting broader and broader. And there are whole companies like Splunk that are doing very well, taking advantage of the fact that how fast the pattern of keystrokes as someone types on the terminal tells you something. The pattern of how the characters come across. These are security pieces. You have a signature. You have a hand, as they say, that says, here's the click-through pattern of this person. The text language of what are these sales reps saying? Are there certain phrases that lead for them to be more successful at closing or less successful? The question of what's the video camera in your parking lot showing in terms of who's there? These are all data. So I think what is data is getting broader and broader. And the ability to use AI and machine learning allows you to take fairly crappy data, video cameras of things, or some companies are trying to have little badges that monitor, maybe creepy, where everybody is. Where are you at the moment? Certainly when you text in the report, it's there. Certainly for retail, lots of companies now go and walk by, snap a picture of the stocking, recognize what's high or what's low in the stocking, send it back in, call that back to production and delivery. Right? So images, text, sound, speech, all data. Tools. Something interesting is happening, which is that the big companies like Google and Amazon are giving away their core software for free. Things like TensorFlow, you can download it and do it. Where do they think the value is they're giving the software away? The data, right? Google is not going to give away for free their data. If you look at a typical profit on a click on a Google ad versus a Microsoft, Google gets about twice as many cents per click on average. Not because they have better AI. They have a deeper pool of ads and more data on click-throughs. Having the data allows higher accuracy. There's also a change in the hardware. Graphical processing units have led to 10 to 20-fold speedups, minimum, sometimes up to 100. Being able to run on fast hardware allows lots of these deep learning systems to run way more cheaply, like 10 times as cheaply. And finally, sort of obviously to this crowd, starting up and trying these things out is much easier in the cloud. Amazon or Google or Microsoft be happy to have you log in. Here's an instance with TensorFlow pre-installed. Everything is set up. It's ready to go. Give it a whirl. No installation. You can do the latest GPUs or Tensor chips or whatever, all pre-installed. Cool. So what have I really said? I've said that lots more different, richer information about who's buying what when, what's failing when, what the usages are. Just incredibly ability to process this. Here's the shifting load patterns across my centers, including text and images. Lots and lots of automation routine tasks. I think we'll see just vast amounts more of that, of this cognitive computing. And I think the way that your employees and your customers customers expect to communicate is going to shift pretty rapidly to expect, why can't I text and get that answer? And, of course, the obvious infrastructure in the cloud. With that, I thank you, and we'll take some questions, I think. So thanks. Yes? We have to either we're hanging for a mic. Either you have to be able to shout really loud, or we'll get a microphone. I'm good at shouting, but it's harder from the audience. So yeah.
Regarding the job loss,
yep.
In 1900, when electricity automobiles came, there were job losses, of course, but far more jobs gained. But now the speed of change, would the jobs replaced be less than the jobs lost, especially for people who haven't gone to college? Would they be affected by the change?
Yeah, so the speed of change is higher now, and I think there's no shortage of jobs being created. I think the problem is, if you spent 30 years as a truck driver, making $65,000 a year, and they say, great, no problem, we just need another Python programmer, we're really short-staffed. So I do think we have a societal problem. I think there's no shortage of jobs. I think there is a shortage of jobs of the right sort for the right people. And I think many things it's unclear. I think if all the Uber drivers and Lyft drivers got put out of work, many of them would find work as personal trainers or massage assistants or something. But I don't know. It's a huge risk and a huge uncertainty. And I think as a society, we have a big problem. I don't worry about it so much for companies, many of which have been fairly successful at taking their help desk people and training them to do a little more higher-ender help and replacing the lower end. So I think within the company, I don't worry about it so much. Across society, I do.
Yeah, question over here. Elon Musk likes to say that regarding robots, we'll be very lucky in the future if they just keep us around as pets. What's your feeling about that?
So I think it's entirely plausible that in 50 to 100 years, computers will be smarter than us in every way and will dominate us. And maybe Musk is right. Who knows? In the next 5 or 10 years, I think the chance of that happening is 0. I think a much more plausible piece is computers are already way smarter than us at many tasks. Forget playing Go. How about scheduling airlines? How about just multiplying numbers together? My computer's way better at multiplication than I am. In fact, it's even better at solving partial differential equations than I am. There's nothing that prevents us having computers that are way smarter than us in lots of ways, as long as we can keep it and explain in some way that they match our utility functions, that they're doing things that we want. So I think the fact that there's this illusion there's a single kind of intelligence, that intelligence is G, it's all in the same thing. With humans, if you're better at memorizing numbers, you're probably better at solving math problems. You're probably better at English. But computers are incredibly different kinds of intelligence from humans. They're way, way better than us at memorization. They're way, way worse than us at flexibly figuring out new things. A good 6-year-old can tell more creative, different stories than a good computer. So I think this notion that computers will just step in and replace us assumes a single intelligence, as opposed to saying, oh yeah, computers are already better than us. They're going to take over many, many functions. But fine, if computers can replace me at most of the emails I send and just automatically respond to all your questions, great. Does that put me out of a job or out of a life? So it's not clear to me, at least in the next 10 to 20 years time frame, where I'm going to be working and around, it's not clear that computers are going to take over everything. And 100 years, one thing I've learned about prediction, really hard to make 100-year in the future predictions. Picture yourself in 1900. What would life look like in Manhattan today? Right, hard to tell. So I don't know.
Up the back here.
Yeah.
Sorry. So
your projections are more optimistic. You know, I was in a similar presentation like yours from Stanford, and this professor was saying, you know, you can quibble about the time frame. The world only needs about 20% of the population to provide goods and services, and then comes the question of skills gap. You know, you may have tasks, jobs to be done, skills gap. So societally, how would you occupy those people? For example, minimum basic income. I understand Finland is already doing. Any thoughts on that space?
I'm not trying to disagree. We're quibbling only about the time frame. I'm arguing that the next 10 or 20 years, you will see lots of job loss, just like you saw in the last 10 or 20 years. I don't have a typist secretary. I don't talk to travel agents. I don't ride horse and buggies. There are lots of things which I don't use for services. It's not as good to be a travel agent as it used to be. There are just not so many jobs there. People use Expedia, travel, whatever. But so in the short term, I think there's a huge transition problem, both for society, particularly as a whole, and within companies. How do you make sure that the people can trade up to doing other higher skilled things, or things that are harder to automate? Healthcare, a lot of healthcare stuff is still incredibly labor intensive. The nurse needs to put the hands on and see you. In 50 or 100 years, I don't know. I suspect we'll eventually get replaced by computers. But it's hard to tell, really, really hard to tell, like impossible to tell. So I think in some sense the question really is, if you look at the problem in the US, and now here I'm totally being political, the problem seems to be not unemployment, where we have very low unemployment on the whole. The problem seems to be that there are not enough good jobs and enough things that are rewarding and pay well and that incent people to stay in the labor market, and enough way to make sure that money is redistributed either by, if you believe universal basic income, which is trendy in Silicon Valley, or you believe paying people to work, which is trendy in the Midwest, but some way for people actually to be a part of society and be contributing is important.
So I have a bit of an accent. I find American voice systems tend to ignore me a lot. How are we going to go about getting bias out of our systems? Like, you know, as the machines learn, how do we prevent them from learning our biases?
So there's a huge problem with bias. Some of the bias comes just because of data size samples. If you have a lot more whites than blacks, these systems are statistical. They will do better on the things they have more data from. If there are more whites than blacks, it'll do better on whites. If there's more blacks than whites, it'll do better on blacks than whites. Bad news, there are more Americans than Brits. You're a minority. They will do statistically less well. I think, right? We're biased against Brits, statistically. So what does one need to do? I think one piece to do is any time you build a automated system, try and think about what are these subgroups or these subpopulations, and does it work reasonably well on that? That may be geographical. This thing that works in your American data centers may not work the same in your European data centers. There may be systematic differences. And especially if you have more American than European data centers, I'd be a little careful about saying, well, my average performance is 70% across all my data centers. Yeah. That doesn't mean it's 70% in each of your data centers. So I think there's a lot of time just to check, is this biased? Is this doing worse for women or Europeans or whichever minority or non-minority? But typically it's a minority because that's how statistics works. They do better on the good things. The other piece is to look for unintended consequences. What happens you don't want? Amazon rolled out same-day delivery in the affluent zip codes. And you end up saying, oh, duh, look at Manhattan. We see all the white people getting same-day delivery and all the black people not getting it. Did they mean to be discriminatory? Of course not. Or yes, they absolutely meant to be discriminatory. They wanted to service the high-profit people first and the low-profit people later, right? You discriminate for your good clients against your bad clients. This is a big profitable business, and this is a little tiny useless business. I'm going to give more attention to you. As long as that discrimination is intentional and legal and functional, it's fine. Often what you find is you have little inadvertent consequences. Fine, it's not that hard to include a few other zip codes, so it's at least a contiguous region, and there's not little gaps in the middle we're blocking out. Often the PR aspect of, yes, we've taken these small set of people and treated them like crap is not worth doing for the tiny bit of cost. So I think one of the things to worry about is automation systems are not very good at telling you currently, here's the subpopulation or the subgroup or the kinds of things I'm doing poorly on. You might want to look into whether you need to collect more data about this subgroup, have more manual review. So I think this process means there needs to be a lot of checking. How is this doing? What is it doing right? What are we potentially discriminating against we hadn't thought? The good news is that's not too hard to do.
Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you.
There's no better way for us to wrap. There's no better way for us to wrap up with exactly that. That as we think about how we run and reinvent our businesses, how we run and reinvent our society, being thoughtful about how we do it, taking the right approach and thinking in terms of all the change we can drive is phenomenal. I really appreciate you always being up here, Dr. Unger. Thanks very much. A round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks.
Of course, I also love when he talks in terms of averages and average performance because I like to think of myself as globally average height, which is important. So it's always a matter of picking your statistical comparisons. All right, so we've had a great session this morning about how we run and reinvent our businesses, clearly thinking in terms of AI, ML, and all those aspects of that. It's important. But it's also a chance for us to bring it back, as Dr. Unger said, so we're not holding a tape player up to our heads and thinking it's a phone. This conversation is powerful for us to do. So the next part of the afternoon is going to be a chance for us to do a networking lunch. It'll be right out here since we're in New York, stage left to your right as you go out on the second floor. And you'll be able to actually do it as a walking lunch. So you'll have innovative handheld items that you can carry with you as you go visit to each of our sponsors in the expo. There'll also be a roundtable lunch and a Mainframe networking lunch that some of you are aware of. If you have any questions finding those locations, please check with a BMC person who's wearing a white lanyard, and you can get information on how to reach those lunches. After lunch, we get to come back for some exciting breakout sessions. We'll talk in terms of digital service management with Chad, digital business automation with Gore, digital service operations with Daniel Nelson, and digital leadership initiatives with Jason Fry. And these are really focused on first technology areas, and then also, as Jason will talk about cross-pillar use cases, such as infrastructure migration and DevOps. These are clearly some subject matter experts you're going to appreciate hearing from, and it's a great way to hear their experience and also hear some more examples of how customers are partnering with BMC to run and reinvent their business. One logistical note is this is a silent conference. If you've ever been out in Times Square and seen a silent rave, it's pretty awesome. We're not quite that cool, but we're close. You'll actually get a set of headphones, and you can change them from the color to red, purple, green, and blue. You'll carry the same set of headphones with you to go from session to session. And if you're sitting close to another session and that looks more interesting, guess what? You can just switch your channel. So it's a great way for us to make efficient use of space and be innovative as we're able to do that. As you go to those sessions, also you'll have a chance to have breaks. And so the final thing we wanted to make sure we touched on is your sponsor expo passport. So either during lunch or in between those sessions, do go get this stamped. Be sure to visit each partner, and once it's completely stamped, drop it off at the registration desk for a chance to win a great prize like some of those shown on screen. One keynote is you must be present at our reception afterwards to win your prize. So yes, we're going to make you drink free drinks with us in order to get your prize. But please do stay for that. I want to thank all of our sponsors who helped make this day possible. But most importantly, I want to thank all of you. We had a great session this morning. We have some great breakouts planned. But it only works when our partners, our great guests, our customers are here together. So let's get out there and run and reinvent. Let's make it a great day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.